threat was there for long track supercells, and the threat was there for what could be potential even long track tornadoes. So Rick, you're looking at the storm on Storm View 3D. Right now, the storm is not within our viewing area yet.
Correct.
So this is Knoblich for reference here. This is the tornado-warned storm that is moving towards Adair County. And for us, we got on this a little bit early because the tornado warning is up. For us, the reality of all of this is we cover whether it's our most populous or least populous. This is going to go moving towards Edmonton, that area rotation, and this is not an area that there are plenty of people in this area.
No, I mean, it's definitely more rural.
But it's right along the Cumberland.
It's right along Cumberland. And the threats, you're talking about golf ball sized hail and 70-mile-per-hour winds outside of the fact that we may have a tornado, which means every single one of the threats are in play right now. Knoblich, you are looking at the potential for some of that golf ball sized hail. Those purples, that indicates the fact that you could see some hail. We're looking at about 65 dBz. So this is sending a very strong echo back to the radar, telling us that there's some larger hailstones suspended within the updrafts of this thunderstorm. And at some point, those updrafts can't keep those hailstones up there long enough because they get too heavy. And gravity does its work, takes it all the way down to the ground. So Knoblich right now, please be ready for some hail. You need to be inside. You need to be away from those windows. Seek shelter. And also on the southern side is where we have the potential for that tornado. Now, like Mark said, I'm going to zoom out just so you can get an orientation as to where you are.
And there's Edmonton right along the Cumberland Parkway.
Right, so there's Edmonton. It's not inside Adair County, but this warning is so far out because of the history of the storm. Going back 5 hours, it was still a supercell by itself, ingesting all of the warm and moist, unstable air that it could without any sort of interruption. And with that said, that's why it's been able to survive so long, because there's nothing choking it off. There's nothing stealing the energy. It's all by itself, and there's high confidence that it's going to continue to do so. And I agree with that.
I think Rick makes a super valid point. This is not a short tornado warning. There's the term short fuse and there's the term long fuse, and this is a long fuse warning. The reason they went long fuse is because there's more confidence that this can move further and we'll stay with that rotation. Why? Let's go back over to Storm View HD, and we're going to spend a little time analyzing. So I'm going to show you what this looks like. There's two things that are very important to note here. There is a severe thunderstorm warning that extends outside of the tornado warning. Why? Well, because the hail is going to be north of this. So the hail may go into the southern part of Hart County. Understand, the severe thunderstorm warning for Hart County is for 1.5 inch size hail. And you can see we've got a serious hail core right now over Knoblich. This may be larger than golf balls, actually. So this then downstream, Rick, let's just zoom this out a pinch because I want to get some locations here. Gradyville, Nell, Milltown, Exie, which is in the southern part of Greene County. All of this area here is under the threat of hail. The deepest core is north of Beachville, but you can see that hail core is going to get into the southern part of Greene County, and it's going to go through a core of Adair County. Second, why go with a long fuse? Look at the big body supercell here. So it's huge. What you're going to notice is that there is an area that moves this way on the north, and then it splits down on the bottom. We sometimes refer to this as the flying eagle or the V. And what it means is this has a very strong updraft. And an updraft, for all intensive purposes, is where the rotation begins that can generate a tornado. It's the life of the storm. The more intense the updraft, from a perspective of meteorology, it's basically impenetrable. So when we see the split V, or what we call the flying eagle, it means the updraft is so strong that it's splitting the air around it. That's a long-lived supercell. We know it is because it's been going for 5 to 6 hours. And it has potentially a tornado on the Cumberland Parkway heading towards Edmonton. Rick's going to track this into Adair County, moving at about 45 miles per hour. Is that what we're thinking on it? Okay. So puts it in the Wisdom area 2 minutes from now. Edmonton, if you have friends or family there, 9 minutes from now. And then in the Coffer area, 18 minutes from now. So this then would go south of Columbia around 30 minutes from now, near Glens Fork, Gradyville, around 25 to 30. The hail threat is significant here, and we also have that area of rotation that is literally on the Cumberland Parkway. I think that's what makes me the most uncomfortable, is the location of where it is. It's a highly traveled area. The Cumberland Parkway, the Western Bluegrass, these are roads that are heavily, heavily traveled. So that area rotation, Edmonton, right now should be in your tornado safe spot. There's no other way to put that. Let's go out and zoom this out just a pinch, because I want to look at that storm that's heading towards southern Breckenridge County and towards Grayson County, and I want to see how we are looking on that and whether we continue with a tornado warning. So let's do a similar analysis. Is this a full supercell? Do we have the split, that V or that flying eagle? You got it. We do. So that means this has been going for a long time. Severe thunderstorm warning for Breckenridge County, and then the tornado warning is back behind that. Be aware that while this may not look that intense over Louisville, we had out of light rain like this, a 50-mile-an-hour wind gust out of the E-Town area. So the severe thunderstorm warning here for Breck is for 1.5 inch size hail, which is a pinch under golf ball, tornado possible, and for 60-mile-an-hour winds. We did have a severe thunderstorm warning earlier that was in effect on the northern edge of this for Orange County, and I'm curious, has that warning been allowed to expire? Let's go off that briefly. Just give me, okay, so that one that's moving into Orange County has weakened. I'll tell you, these storms are going to still make it towards Louisville, and there's an outside chance, let me not refer to it, there's a chance that we go under severe. I would tell you that if you're near Irvington, Radcliffe, let's say Vine Grove, Fort Knox, I would say E-Town, Bardstown, you're the area that is very, very likely to get severe. You're very likely to get warnings moving forward. And destructive wind, large hail, and some tornadoes are going to be in play on this. So we'll track off the core of this line, which is racing off to the east at about 6.5 miles per hour. And you can see that puts it in Ekron 3 minutes from now. 8 minutes from now. Flaherty around 15 minutes from now. Rhineyville 22 minutes from now. 29 minutes from now on the crest, and around Lebanon Junction, you're talking about 32 minutes from now. Matthew, you've also been looking at some of what we have seen in terms of pictures and what we have known has occurred. Some of what we know is that St. Louis was hit and 4 people died in the tornado that went through there. You saw earlier we did have damage around Bloomington that we do believe was a tornado. And then a lot of people saw something outside that we don't always get here. It's a different type of cloud that you can actually see here at sunset that you have a viewer picture of.
Yeah, in Campbellsburg, Indiana, Natalie Houchin sending this one in.
And this is on Weather Picks, by the way, guys.
Mammatus clouds, absolutely beautiful to look at, but boy, can they be dangerous, especially for aircraft, because it's all about the turbulence that's happening inside the storm, right?
Very good point.
It is beautiful. Check that out. And so this is the what do you want to call it? The juxtaposition of storms, or the dichotomy, whatever the proper word is. You have all this severe weather going on, and then you get something beautiful out of it as well, like mammatus clouds. They're just so amazing. And then you have rainbows and different things. So there's beauty in the danger as well. It is crazy.
And these are not clouds we get all that often around here. The cause of these, so the air rises in the thunderstorms, hits what we call the top of the weather-producing atmosphere, the tropopause. It spreads out all across the sky. Well, that air is cooler than the surrounding air, and as that air sinks, you get these little puffs. And those are those mammatus clouds that you see there. Very, very cool. We see these out in the Great Plains quite frequently. We don't always get these within our area. Tornado warning continues in the far southern part of our area. We have a tornado warning just west of our area. Rick, you know, I'm thinking if you're in the Short Creek area, if you're in Heights Falls, if you're in Litchfield, this storm has been a tornado warned storm for a really long time. At best case, I think you're probably going to go under a warning for 70s.
Warning for 70s, tor possible, if not a tornado warning itself. Ooh,
there we
go.
That?
Good thunder here in Louisville.
Rumble, rumble.
Yeah,
I assume now this is whenever, the camera people just looked out, so we do have lightning thunder here in Louisville. The storms are getting closer. Okay, now we're getting warnings closer towards Louisville. Rick, can you just go out a little bit, take it towards Louisville, because we now have a severe thunderstorm warning on that line. So this is what a lot of people in Louisville have asked about. Are we going to go under a warning? Rick, to me, it doesn't look like it's for the front near Corydon. I think we're probably talking about the back near Alton. But this is I think the Weather Service is very likely to issue for Louisville.
Yeah, I mean, we had some rain in Louisville earlier. I don't think it completely erased all the energy that we had.
And to verify a warning, a tree has to fall. And we know that the Weather Service is highly cautious when a storm gets into Louisville. So Louisville, I told you earlier, around 10, it's probably going to be 10 to 10:30. Be aware, a warning is probably going to get issued. 60-mile-an-hour winds. So for Louisville, if you're south of the Waterson, that's where you would be most likely to get some of those strong winds moving through Metro Louisville. That warning right now is for 60-mile-an-hour winds we have on that one, Rick, or is that stronger?
I think it's 60s, yeah. Just let me verify.
Okay, and Rick's just he's forcing it so 60s. That it'll, and 1-inch size hail.
Correct.
Matthew, you've been looking at some of the winds there on Analyst near around the Hardinsburg area. That one is a little bit more concerning when you look southwest of Hardinsburg, because we have some pops that are stronger winds.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to come over to you on the Analyst there, and you can see on the left, that's what we call normal reflectivity. On the right, you've got some of those pinks in there, and those pinks that Matthew is looking at. Matthew, what are you looking at in terms of intensity in the knots and then in miles per hour on that area?
So looking like 67 knots is the highest pixel that I found so far.
And that's about 75, so that's getting close to hurricane force winds gusts.
And you know, the question is, does it translate all the way to the ground? Well, we are getting closer and closer to the radar with these scans.
Right.
As the latest ones have been coming in. So yeah, I'm assuming that this is going to verify for 65 to 70 mile per hour winds, which is, let's see, moving east at 65 miles per hour, and ping pong ball sized hail and 60 mile per hour wind gusts. So wouldn't surprise me though if we got something closer to 70, as you mentioned. And we just got that new severe thunderstorm warning a little bit further south that includes Hartford, Litchfield in our area, of course, so Grayson County. And that's going to be for 70 mile per hour wind gusts, quarter-sized hail.
And I'm just going to show you a couple of camera views there. So this is the downtown Louisville camera. We'll see the lightning out there as the storm approaches our downtown area. A camera in Corydon right now. That's the front part of this. I'm kind of curious if we get any shake to the camera. Whoa, okay. So yeah, look on the bottom left there. You can definitely see the trees blowing. I'm going to move this camera real quickly. I want to get you a better view of what we can actually see in the square. This may give us a better sense of if that front area is producing severe. There's the lightning that is flashing across the sky. The camera's going to angle down just a little bit so we can actually see some of those tree leaves, and that'll give us a better sense of if that front area is producing severe or the back. I think we're starting to push now towards the outflow dominated, not outflow dominated, but we're transitioning now to the destructive damaging wind scenario that we all thought would happen. There's the tree limbs blowing around there. Wow, you could see the lightning crashing there. I'm sure it's rocking right now in the Corydon area. Let's take a view on some of our other cameras. Out of Bardstown right now, you can see, you know, that's the thing here. We're getting really mixy conditions that are allowing the hellacious winds aloft, even out of thunderstorm, to produce some strong winds. And you can see that out of Bardstown. Elizabethtown, we've been looking westward towards the storms. It has been a lightning fest on this camera watching it. And you remember, you can view these cameras, doesn't matter where you are, anywhere you live. You just go to WDRB.com. On the top, you're going to see a tab that says weather. Click it and you'll see our weather cameras, giving you the option to view our cameras around the area. Let me show you the power outage map here. Louisville peaked at around 1800. We had that out of the Lake Forest area. Glad to say that it does appear that LG&E has taken care of a lot of that, now down to 370 without power. That is an improvement. Rick, you're looking at this on 3D. So a couple things I see initially as I go towards that. We've got winds that are getting really close to radar, and those look like they're pretty strong approaching Brandenburg, and that does mean South Louisville's in that trajectory.
Yeah, I do think we will probably end up seeing some more power outages out of this one if this storm can maintain this intensity. So kind of just orienting yourself On the left-hand side of your TV screen, that's classic, that's reflectivity. It's how we always display radar. And there is one core that's between Corden and Brandenburg, and that's the leading edge.
Right.
But that one does not have the really intense winds.
Good information.
It's the second one just to the west of Brandenburg, and that's where you're going to notice some winds.
What are you seeing on pixels?
On pixels, I'm looking at 65 knots.
Okay, what height? 1,200, 15?
We're about 1,200 feet up.
Okay.
Which should easily be 75.
Rick and I have worked together a long time doing severe weather coverage. Rick knows some of my background, and radar is what I love. I think we all know that. So Rick has said to me before, you call things out sometimes and it's exactly on, and we kind of now have a...
We're like a human calculator. It's kind of insane. It's really insane.
But so Rick, to the point though, Matthew mentioned aloft versus the ground. If we're now talking at 1,200 feet, now it's even getting closer. And this is getting close to Brandenburg, and there are even higher gates in there now.
Let me zoom in and just...
Some of those purples are going to be 70 knots.
Those are 70 knots.
So now we're starting to see hurricane force winds approaching Brandenburg. Look, if you're in Brandenburg, Rick, these winds, and Matthew, they're coming out of the west. So Matthew, if you're choosing the location in your house to try to be safe from this, you're on the west side of the house, the trees can fall. You can get broken winds, windows and things like that. Then where would you go in your house?
Well, I mean, of course, the prime place is going to be down into the basement if you have one. But, you know, if you could get a little bit further to the eastern side of the house, that may be a little bit of a better bet for you. But it all depends. I mean, no place above ground is necessarily going to be your safest spot. But you're usually looking for the centermost portion of the home, or you're looking for something a little bit further away from that western wall.
So as no windows too, you know, that's going to be that'll be key, especially with, you know, all these trees up and all those branches that could be knocked down.
I think that's different. I think, you know, people saw 65-mile-an-hour winds earlier this year. Matthew, we worked several events that Sunday night where we got 65, and we only had about 1,500 without power. The difference in that is you didn't have those leaves on the trees. Rick, we're getting real quick updates on this. Brandenburg, you've really got to be prepared that some 70s could be occurring. Akron, Irvington. We're transitioning. The line is starting to look more like a bow. It tells us that we may be moving away from the tornado threat now into the more significant wind threat.
Right, and this is, the threat with these will be more widespread. Greater areas will be impacted by these warnings, not so much like the ones we experienced earlier, where they are more localized, more intense, more hail, more tornado. This is going to be widespread. There's going to be more of a swath of some winds, which could be in excess of 70 miles per hour. Like I said, we are talking about the potential for hurricane force winds sliding through with a possible tornado again in our southern community. So we are not letting our guard down just yet, because that has a pretty nasty looking hook on it.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable storm. This storm has now traveled 6 hours, moving at around 55 miles an hour, 300 miles. You're talking about a supercell thunderstorm. You're like, Mark, what you're saying is not true, buddy. You're just trying to make this sound worse. Well, let's analyze it. I mean, the beauty of having a weather system is I can show you and go back as far as I want. I'm going to go actually back 12 hours. And I'm going to take this back so we can see when the storm actually formed and how far it has actually traveled. So this is 12 hours back. I'm going to move all the way back to the genesis of the storm so we can accurately say how far it's gone. Piedmont, there's the storm there. This is 347, still going back, still going back, still going back. The storm near Mountain Grove in the southern part of Missouri. There's the storm that generates near Branson. So I'm going to give you now a measurement, a scientific measurement, not my opinion. How far has this storm tracked? 100, 200, 300, 350. It has traveled 400 miles.
Oh my gosh.
400 miles, and it has been a supercell thunderstorm for 8 hours.
Long track?
Unbelievable. So. Now I'm just going to let you see this. Marvel in the unbelievable power of Mother Nature. There it is. There it's tracking. There it goes. 400 miles. If you ever doubt the power that exists in Mother Nature, this should tell you this stuff is insanity. And I'm just going to be clear. This is why we spoke in elevated verbiage about the potential for long track stuff today. Now, this one is moving towards, it's moved past Edmonton. I think we would know if it did damage in Edmonton, and we don't have reports yet. It's moving towards the Nell area, the main area rotation. It's ultimately going to go towards 704 near the Glens Fork area. Be aware, Gradyville, this may be producing large hail. I want to give you the information on the current warning. The tornado warning is in effect, and the hail size is golf balls near Gradyville right now. Golf ball size hail is heading towards Columbia. Listen to me, if you're in Columbia right now, your car, if you can get it away under something, you probably have 7 minutes. If you're in the Craycraft area and Christine and Glens Fork, that window may be closing for you. The tornado rotation area is near Nell. And Rick, you're looking at that rotation area on 3D. Tell me what you're seeing in terms of the intensity.
I'm seeing the intensity come down. I think this actually may be occluding or getting lifted into the main body of the storm. I've gone back a couple of scans. Edmonton, I mean, that is a classic hook right on top of you, and you can see on the right-hand side of your screen matched up with that is the velocity. Those greens and reds are banked up right against each other. So let's fast forward a couple of scans. Okay. We still have rotation. You can see that pivot off to the north. Rotation tends to spread out a little bit. So while there's still a possible tornado down there, the rotation's not as strong as it once was about 5 to 6 minutes ago.
What about debris? Any debris? Are we seeing this loft?
I haven't seen anything significant, but there were some subtle hints. There were right around Edmonton, right in that scan right there. So that was the only concern I had.
Okay.
In that area right there.
And continue to watch that storm, Rick. He's going to be laser focused on the tornado warned storm. Matthew and I will be covering what else is ongoing. We have now new tornado warnings. So just so news knows, it's extremely likely that we're going to be with these tornado warnings for a while. It is possible we would come to you guys a little bit later, but it's also conceivable this may go through. New tornado warning now just issued. The concern is now elevating and getting worse. 1-inch size hail for Breckenridge, Grayson, Hardin. Tornado warning now in effect for Breckenridge, Grayson, and Hardin County. Matthew, can you just make sure our E-Town camera is zoomed towards the west? And I also notice you have the warning in front of you. The tornado warning. Can you just give us some of the information on that tornado warning, the new one just issued?
Yeah, it's moving east at 65. Tornado is radar indicated with quarter-sized hail in there as well. Mainly over rural areas right now, but we do know, of course, and let me double check here. E-Town, are they included in that latest one there?
It's just on the edge of E-Town. But downstream, Matthew, you raise a valid point. If that continues, you could very well go under a tornado warning in E-Town.
This has been one that's produced tornadoes multiple times, been tornado warned for a significant amount of time. So
I believe this is the one that was an emergency at some point.
I think it was.
I mean, it's
another example.
But mentally thinking back to I think where you and I and Matthew and all of us are going to remember this system and what it did because of the amount of real estate that has been covered by severe. So severe thunderstorm for Breckenridge, Crawford, Harrison, and Meade County. This is for 1-inch size hail, 60-mile-an-hour winds. This is approaching it is in Brandenburg, and it is now approaching Corydon. We'll take a look at the camera there as well. Severe thunderstorm warning also includes Irvington through Hardinsburg, and severe thunderstorm warning has now been issued for Grayson County as well. So let's take a look at what we have occurring. I want to go back to Corydon because we got that camera in the right direction. So we do know that the severe that is coming towards Louisville is hitting Corydon right now. So we look at this camera to see what's occurring. Obviously, lightning's vivid. The trees are taking a much greater reaction because we have parachutes on them. What? Because we have leaves. All of our other severe events occurred before we left the trees. And so this is now a far different scenario. That's the view out of Corydon. We're going to stay on top of that. Here's the view out of Elizabethtown. This is looking to the west, I believe.
West-northwest. Unfortunately, there's a wall that blocks that westerly view.
Got it. So this is west-northwest out of E-Town, looking into the tornado-warned storm. This is going to give us a very, very good view on what's occurring here. It's been a vivid, prolific lightning producer, and we have some really strong winds that are still showing up here that are approaching parts of our area. area. I'm going to head over to the wall real quickly. We're going to do an assessment of what we have ongoing in terms of our current tornado warnings and where those storms are going. Rick, work with me on this one. Matthew, keep buried in on, if you could, on analysts, just to make sure, looking for any debris. Louisville, you're under a severe thunderstorm warning just issued right now. So Louisville has gone under a severe thunderstorm warning twice. Rick, can you get me info on the new warning for Louisville?
Got it.
This is 70-mile-an-hour winds, guys. When I talked to you earlier, I told you that this would have a potential for higher end severe, that we could get destructive winds, that we could get hurricane force winds. What I told you is that this was probably going to be evolving. Louisville, I want you to read the words here. So this is Jefferson, Harrison, Hardin, and Bullitt. This is until 10:30. This may generate 1-inch size hail, 70-mile-an-hour winds, and I want you to look at this word right here. The threat is considerable. If you're in Louisville, you're planning right now for 70-mile-an-hour winds. 70-mile-an-hour winds. I want to make sure our anchors, guys, can we just make sure that we are constantly looking at LG&E for power outages as this come through Louisville, and Fallon and Gill will be keeping an eye on that. If you guys can, alert me if you see some pops on this, and we'll come right over to you. So at WDRB, and this is one of the things that we really pride ourselves on, is team coverage. So they are going to make sure that they're monitoring everything in terms of what's happening, and I do believe we have our Christy Batista out there in E-Town as well. I'm going to go to Christy here momentarily, so can you guys just let me know, Seth, in my ear, if she's ready. I do want to go to her momentarily just to, for her to let us know what's going on. Rick, can you just give me a quick note on the speed on these storms?
7.5.
Whoa.
Yep.
So, Rick, just quickly with me, it was 65 before. What does this say to you?
It says this thing's cooking.
And it's moving faster because it's starting to generate more wind damage. That's the problem, is when you start to see the storm move faster, those crazy winds from aloft are coming down to the ground. Hear me, guys. PRP 5 minutes from now. Downtown Louisville 11 minutes from now. Jeff 18 minutes from now. 27 minutes from now in Simpsonville. 33 minutes in Shelbyville. 42 minutes in the Harrisonville area. Louisville under a severe thunderstorm warning. Let's go a little bit further to the south. I want to focus in on E-Town here briefly. Let Christy know we're going to come to her. We got to keep it somewhat short because the storms are going to be continuing to move through. Tornado warning. Rick, can you scope me here south of Hardinsburg? I just want to make sure what I'm looking at. See if we have any rotation. Some possible there. A little bit of rotation near Short Creek. This may be that there could be quick spins now. I believe we're now moving into a scenario where damaging to destructive winds are going to be the primary, but we're going to get these quick spin-ups that could occur within that line as it is moving towards the Elizabethtown area. Our Christy Batista is in Elizabethtown. Christy, let us know what you're seeing right now, and let me let you know in about 30 minutes, make sure that you have a way to take shelter.
Can you hear them? They just started just a few minutes ago. The wind really just started picking up here in E-Town. We are south of E-Town, right off of 65, where Western Kentucky Parkway and Lincoln Parkway meet. We are at the intersection where all of these gas stations are, and to my right, of course, you can obviously see that the wind is blowing pretty hard right now. I don't know if you can hear it, but you might be able to hear the sirens behind us. We have seen a lot of lightning, and we can tell that this storm is on its way in as we're standing here right now. I mean, we got here probably 10, 15 minutes ago, would you say, Greg? And it was pretty calm. The wind immediately started picking up, and then boom, we heard those sirens right as you were saying it, Mark. So people in this area, including us, we need to start taking shelter right now. There's a lot of people at this gas station. We're at the racetrack here. And to my right, I can see the street lights, the stoplights really picking up speed here, and the trees across the street are really starting to move. There's still quite a few people out and about right now. When we were on our way down here, honestly, for a Friday night, not many people on the roads. We can all assume that people are staying inside because of what we're expecting. Now, we're starting to feel those raindrops come down. It is starting to rain just a little bit. The wind is starting to pick up. And again, we can continue to hear those sirens. So that storm is definitely, indeed, Mark, on its way in.
Christy, appreciate you getting that information. We've all heard them. We all know the tornado sirens, but every time you hear them, it just sends a chill. It sends a chill up your spine. So we have a severe thunderstorm warning for Louisville, tornado warning here. Remember, that includes southern Breckenridge and Hardin County and southern Adair County. Rick, I'm going to come to you first. Matthew, you're going to keep an eye on Adair County. I'll come to you second. Rick, you're focused in on Louisville. Tell us what you're seeing in terms of winds, and we are in that spot that it's right over the Fort Knox radar site, and this is going to be very telling within the next 6 to 8 minutes what this means for Metro Louisville.
I mean, I can't even count the number of times that we've seen storms come out of that area, move through southwest Louisville, pick up in intensity, and cause damage. I mean, this is just basically a cyclical event at this point in time. So,
and Rick, that shows that sign too, for what it's worth.
It does. It does.
It's a hard front edge. It looks like it's starting to push from the winds right at the site, the radar site, and even maybe more concerning, right along the Jefferson-Bullitt County line there, right along the Ohio. That may be a notch trying to form.
It is, and so we're really trying to see. There's the really strong winds closing
right over
in,
West Point, Fort Knox.
Right over, and there's a cone of silence where we do not have any information because the radar has to be tilted up to see inside the storm. So we will not get information very close to that radar site, but we are starting to see those very powerful winds pressing in to western portions of Jefferson County as well as far western fringe of Bullitt County. So this is going to have some wind power. Again, we're talking about wind. We're also talking about hail. So can't rule out some hail, but right now, wind by and large. This is going to be the big threat.
This is going to come through hard.
It's going to come through hard. There's going to be power outages. There's going to be flickers. I want you to prepare for that right now. Make sure your phone's charged up in case you lose power. And you can always watch us on WDRB.com if your TV happens to go out. So just have multiple ways to get this information because power outage is definitely a possibility moving forward.
And specifically, if you're along the Gene Snyder, if you're outside of the Waterson, specifically, that's where we have high-level concern that this is going to be intensifying fast there. Rick, stay buried on the analysts, let us know. But right along the Jefferson-Bullitt County line is notorious for going wild here as the storms comes out of there. Matthew, you are keeping an eye on our storm that's in Adair County. This is a tornado-warned storm. We did the math earlier. We're now over 400-mile supercell.
8-hour-long duration.
That is, you've covered this for a while too. These are the bears.
Oh, yeah.
We call these long-lived, long-track supercells. And what they do, they may not tornado the entire time, but we know that they have a sustained updraft rotation for hours. What are we looking at rotation? Where is it going?
So here's the rotation south of Flatwood, just past east of Sparksville, and this is going to be traveling along 768 there toward Fairplay and then Glens Fork. That's the most likely, so staying right in or north of Chance, most likely. Those that are in Breeding, those a little bit further south toward Cundiff, you're good to go. You don't have to worry about the tornado warning here. Although you are included in it, the tornado warned portion of the storm is north of you. There's also large hail. I think that's 1.5 or 1.75 inches. So basically golf ball size associated with this storm. But yeah, the rotation that I've got circled here, and it's not quite as prominent as it was just a short time ago. And I was looking at correlation coefficient, and I didn't see anything coming out of that area at this time.
And Matthew, so outside of the tornado warned area, if you're in Columbia right now, you mentioned the hail. That's the hail core. And this, because it's a long-lived supercell, the likelihood of it having maybe the ping pong, maybe the golf ball is elevated. I think with some level of confidence, you have damaging hail moving into Columbia right now.
Absolutely. You know, let me see if I can very quickly pull up our query on that one. Severe thunderstorm warning with the impacts coming through.
Yeah, just so you can go, there you go.
1.25,
and
so 70-mile-per-hour winds associated with it as well.
And that's part of the problem is whether you get the tornado or not, you're still going to get 70s.
Yeah.
So keep an eye on that storm. Rick, you're keeping an eye on the storms that are approaching Metro Louisville. We've been continuing to watch those storms, and we're now starting to pass that cone of silence. So near West Point, right over Fort Knox, we see a hole. Radars can only see what we call tangentially. They can see what's coming towards them or what's going away from them. So what that means is westerly winds in a storm would be the direction. So in the next 4 to 7 minutes, that will have breached the cone, and we will get a very accurate assessment of what's occurring in this. But I think you would agree that our belief is this is probably producing 70s.
I absolutely agree. And Mark, I just want to also kind of mention down the line inside that tornado-warned storm, which includes around Hudson, McDaniels, Custer, there are winds which don't seem to be tornadic, but they're in the neighborhood of 68 knots. So you're talking about, once again, some 75 mile per hour winds moving off to the east. So this is just sandwiched between Custer and Hudson moving eastbound.
The only positive here is maybe it's lost a little bit of the intensity, but the winds aloft are so hellacious that we have seen it with rain showers, 55-mile-an-hour winds today.
And all that is getting pulled down to the surface. Those winds aloft translated down to the surface, which will and can do some damage. So keeping an eye on that one. Also waiting with each and every minute, just the anticipation of seeing what happens on the other side of this cone, because this will be the future for Louisville. And it does look like right now we're starting to get some of the rain moving on the other side. Not seeing any crazy gates or crazy strong winds just yet.
Okay.
But it's something that I wouldn't be surprised at.
And Rick, I'm going to make sure that our Louisville camera is aimed due south. At some point, once this gets into Louisville, we'll want to take this camera in the screen with us because, oh, we're getting power flashes. Guys, can we take the Louisville camera right now? We just had a power flash in Metro Louisville. So this was on the southwest side of Louisville. The camera where you're going to look, there it is.
Yeah.
Let me go to the wall. Those are power flashes. There's damage being done in Louisville right now. Is this straight line winds? We don't know. We will find out quickly, but I'm going to show you as I step in where those power lines are going and where we have flashes. And I want to explain this. If you look here, the lightning is not lightning. You're going to see that it's coming up from the ground. We had a power flash right here. So this is the area that you're going to be looking for. And what we saw is a blue flash. And you can see even this, what appears to be lightning, that may have been, but notice how it sometimes appears to be up pushing. This is the area that you're going to be watching, and this is as the really strong winds are moving in. So our camera on the 800 building has given us, and you can see the kick. That is about as hard a kick as you'll get in downtown Louisville. There you go. Wow. Those are power flashes. You guys saw that?
So many folks go dark there.
Okay, so this is looking due south. This may have been, there's a lightning strike. There's another one. So we're getting power flashes. Louisville, you've got to be elevated on your concern. We have damaging, destructive storms coming through Louisville. There's another one. We're watching power lines blow up live on air right now as the storms are coming through Louisville. And you're going to notice as the power lines are nuked and the transformers blow, that you'll see parts of town going out. There was a power flash right here. There's numerous power flashes. Fallon and Gil, please be looking for LG&E. There's another power line that just blew here. That's due south out of Louisville. This is probably along the Jefferson-Bullitt County line. Rick, can you tell me what you're looking at on Analyst? And I don't want to leave this yet, but can you tell me what you're seeing on winds? And I'm going to point out every time we get a power explosion in Louisville.
Actually, Mark, we just got some reports, and I want to say this from the Meetinger Tower in downtown. It's about 360 feet off the ground, 82 mile per hour gusts.
Okay.
And they said now it's at 85 mile per hour gusts in downtown Louisville.
Okay, so have they adjusted the warning for Louisville, or is the warning staying at 70?
They have not adjusted it yet.
Okay, so what Matthew is saying is that about 300 miles above the ground, we're getting about 80 mile an hour winds. That is stronger than hurricane force. Please. This is not what we saw on April 2nd. This is a different animal now. We have leaves on our trees with our sails. They're going to lay down so much easier on saturated ground. This has the potential to produce a lot of wind damage in the south side of Louisville. Rick, I want to come over to you briefly here, and I want you to tell us on the winds. And I don't know if it's possible to double box Rick and I here as Wall and Weather Center possible even, or is that not doable? If it's not, let's go over to Rick and you just tell us what you're looking at. It's coming out of the cone of silence. What kind of winds are we seeing?
So the winds right now, I'm going to take you from the southern part of the county up to the northern part of the county.
Okay, and let's go over to Rick. I'm going to step away here because I want his screen on air. I want to have analyst Stormview 3D on air.
So what I've done is just one panel. This is just showing you strictly the winds.
Okay.
In southern Louisville, we're looking at gates of around 58. So you're talking about 65-mile-per-hour winds. And then due north, I want to go right into downtown Louisville because, Mark, that area we were just pointing out, some of those gates are showing north of around 60-mile-per-hour winds.
Okay.
Very powerful winds inside Louisville. When you look at that map, what I want your eyes to focus on are the areas of pink and those brighter colors, because the brighter the pixels, the stronger the winds.
71 knots just at Stanford, or Muhammad Ali.
Muhammad Ali,
That's 77 mile an hour winds are in Louisville. Guys, there's nearly 80 mile an hour winds in Louisville. Let me just do the math on this. 71 knots is 81 mile an hour winds in Louisville. There are hurricane force winds hitting Louisville right now. This is a very, very serious, severe situation here in Louisville. The power
crossed through the western side. It's heading into eastern Louisville now, so obviously we're going to be getting a lot of reports of folks up in Indian Hills with that latest scan that just came through, St. Matthews toward Prospect, Anchorage soon. A lot of folks are going to be impacted by this.
So, you know, if you're specifically in Indian Hills, as Matthew just mentioned, let's talk downline here.
Okay.
So if we're moving past this, we're now approaching Worthington in probably 4 minutes. We're approaching Anchorage about 6 minutes. We're in Hurstbourne around 3 minutes. We're in St. Matthews currently. We're in J-Town 3.5 to 4 minutes from now. We're in Fern Creek around 4 minutes. Highview on top of you. Mount Washington, nearly 80 mile an hour winds could be occurring 6 minutes from now. If you're along Billtown Road, you're about 8 minutes from now from 80 mile an hour winds. And if you're in Fisherville, you're now looking at about let's say 9 minutes from now. If you're in Beckley Station, if you are in let's say anywhere along Shelbyville Road outside of the Gene Snyder, you're probably talking about 12 minutes from now. Matthew, can you do me a favor on our camera in Louisville? Can you now aim it towards the east? Because that's where we're starting to see the strongest winds. It may allow us to see more of those power lines exploding as we're watching power outages occur in our area. Rick, you have been part of when we've developed this camera network. This is what we did it for.
It's critical. I mean, just you can look at radar. We have weather spotters out there that are so helpful, but having these cameras that can give us an elevated point of view and also a wide vantage point, it's critical at seeing that and picking up power flashes, those upward emanating flashes of light. Those are so important because that tells you we have damage being done. Typically, when you see the lights flash, you're like, that's just ordinary lightning. Not tonight. Not when you have winds that are north of 80 miles per hour moving through a metro. And Mark, those winds now are just, I mean, they're cruising off to the east. I'm seeing some gates now which are approaching 60 knots.
So it's about 67, but we know that those verified higher.
They verified higher. They verified 80 at the airport themselves.
With a lot of trees, with a lot of leaves on our trees now.
Right.
And Rick, that along the Jefferson Bullitt County line is exactly what happens. I'm going to guess there's 72, 77 knot in there on those brighter pinks.
Yep. Yeah, low 70s.
So these are 80 mile an hour winds, guys, that are going to be on Preston Highway right now, just outside of the Gene Snyder. So Preston Highway along the Jefferson Bullitt County line, this is going down 44. If you're in Glen Mary, if you're in Little Spring Farms, if you're in Mount Washington, you've got to be prepared for 80 mile an hour winds. I believe these are real. They verified on this out of the airport. This is not, this might be occurring.
No.
This is, we know this is occurring.
It's happening. You got to get away from windows. You should not be on the western side of your house because that's where the winds are coming from. Eastern side, give yourself a lot of barriers between you and these strong winds. They are going to blow through and you are going to hear these things. And unfortunately, this is going to knock down trees.
And let me go over to Gil Corsi. Gil, I saw you trying to get my attention. You and I were talking a little bit earlier. Gil, you guys have been watching the power outage side of this.
Sure.
You guys were seeing what we were seeing in that kind of jarring moment where we watched those flickers occurring with power lines. You saw it. I heard your reaction, Fallon. Are we now noting that there's damage occurring in Louisville.
So we've seen the pictures, and here's the data to support it here. At 10 o'clock, this LG&E website updates every 15 minutes.
Okay.
Just before 10 o'clock, there were around 300 outages in Louisville. The last update, there was more than 12,000.
So we've increased about 10,000 just since the storms have entered Louisville, and we know that they're still moving through. So this number may go up. Keep continuing to watch that. Fallon and Gill are going to be watching on the damage side of things as we continue to analyze very closely as destructive winds are moving through Metro Louisville. Matthew, this is the difference between leaves and no leaves.
Yep, absolutely. And, you know, we talk about damaging winds of 80 miles per hour. That's going to be a low-end tornado type of winds. And so you don't need a tornado to get damage and power flashes and all these things. We're getting the winds right now that are causing the damage. I do also want to briefly touch on, if I can, Mark, down in Adair County, we've got the rotation
and
down
so
there.
Matthew is focused on the tornado warning for Adair County. And Matthew, you've been focused on this, and this is kind of why you see in our weather team why we have multiple people. You'll see Rick zooming in and looking very closely. Rick, I'm going to come to you momentarily. Matthew, update us on Adair County.
Cumberland Parkway going toward Russell Springs. So getting ready to move out of Adair County here. We do have an area of rotation along 92 and south of Cumberland Parkway east. That's already past Glens Fork and Joppa. We haven't necessarily gotten any confirmation from the National Weather Service on this one, whether or not it's on the ground. And I haven't seen anything recently from a correlation coefficient.
And so this is right along the Cumberland.
Yes.
It is a heavily traveled area heading into Russell Springs.
Now I know, Rick, you've got a couple of wind.
But let me come back over just so we're clear again.
Yes.
If you're heading towards Russell Springs or if you're in that area, be careful. You are under a tornado warning. We've got also more tornado warnings. We're going to come back to the north. Rick, I want you to tell us what you're seeing here in Metro Louisville. Matthew, if you could focus also on the tornado warning that is approaching the E-Town area now.
Yes.
Rick, we're starting to see what we worried about.
Yeah, and this is exactly what I really want to point this out for you because left reflectivity, right, Mount Washington right now. Listen, if you live in Mount Washington, get ready. There are 80-mile-per-hour winds that are moving in your direction. I'm going to say that again. 80-mile-per-hour winds. That is very powerful, downright destructive winds that are about to cross over Bardstown Road. So here is a little backward C shape at the apex of these little bows. That's where you get the most powerful winds. This is now crossing through Mount Washington. I mean, this will rattle your windows. This will knock down trees, lead to power outages. I need you to be away from windows immediately. This is not a safe situation in Mount Washington. This will travel off to the east, cooking around 70 miles per hour. So please, if you are in Mount Washington, you need to take cover right now, especially be inside. I mean, this is no point to step outside whatsoever. These are strong winds, 80 plus, which are going to slide through the rest of the county momentarily here, and that also extends into southern Jefferson County, just outside the Snyder. You will also see 70 to perhaps even as close to 80-mile-per-hour winds. Those are very powerful, and they are in Mount Washington right now. Yep. So if you are
78, right along basically 44 and Bardstown Road. This is just, if you know Mount Washington, you're talking about right just north of downtown. So you've got the Kroger there, you get towards the Dunkin' Donuts there. This is the area, Rick, where we're talking 80s. This is going to lay down trees.
Absolutely, 100%. And we say that knowing that this is really going to mess up your weekend. I mean, you don't want trees down, power out to kick off your Friday night. But this is just the way it's going to go. And unfortunately, these storms are packing a serious wind punch. Thankfully, we've transitioned out of that tornado threat, but this is really becoming a serious wind threat, and these winds aren't letting go. The newest scan shows the strongest winds now, just off to the east of Mount Washington. Mount Washington is still seeing the strong winds. There's torrential rainfall, but these winds are now emanating outside of that storm, and I don't see anything that's going to stop it, Mark.
And Rick, keep buried on that. Continue to update us. Fallon, you got my attention. Gil, I'm going to come to you next. Fallon, you've been watching some of these power outage maps building, and we just talked about Mount Washington. You're focused on that area.
Yeah, you're talking about Mount Washington, so I looked up Salt River Electric, their outage map at 10:09, 9 903 people were out with power. Now it's 4,525.
So we've added 5,000 out in Bullitt County since just the last 15 minutes. We obviously know damage is being done on these storms. Gil, you've been watching LG&E in Louisville. What are you seeing?
Right, so as we said, it updates about every 15 minutes. So the number is still the same here. It's over 12,000. But if we can zoom in tighter, guys, in the booth, you can really see that
where
it
they're
is
concentrated.
Focused. Yeah, you see that 50-plus outage area here. In that, there's actually two chunks with 50-plus outages in that Shively area of Louisville. That you talked about the cone of silence, and it's almost like we can see in the numbers here how that storm just marched down Dixie Highway or 31, and depending on where you're at, as it came out of Radcliffe, came down south from Bullitt County through the Valley Station, PRP area, and blew across downtown.
Good information, guys. Keep an eye on this here. I don't know if we have a reporter here in Louisville. If we can we pivot them towards southwest Louisville? You guys can direct on where we can try to get to some damage there. But we know that the storms have done some damage in Louisville. Gil Fallon, continue to watch that, get my attention as things continue here. As we look, the strong winds, this continues to be a serious problem. Let's view, Rick, I just want to take a view on a couple of different areas. I don't want to hyper-focus. I want to see what's going on in all of Louisville as well. I'm curious on the northern side how far this is going to go. So let's zoom out even just a little bit more on this, Rick. I want to see a couple of things. So they are issuing downstream here. What is this warning here for? That's what I'm kind of curious on. The second one outside.
For 70-mile-per-hour winds and hail just shy of an inch, 3/4 of an inch.
Okay, and this is considerable destructive. How about the warning that is still in effect for Louisville? Did they ever upgrade it to 80 or did they keep it at 70?
Kept it at 70.
Okay, so these are what we call elevated destructive warnings. The area where we have some of these strongest wind gusts, and Rick, let's go to, I want to go one panel and I want to look at velocity here, and I'm going to spend a little time. Matthew, I'm going to come to you momentarily here as well. Keep an eye on the tornado-warned storms. Let's move even further to the north because I think this is somewhat interesting and intriguing. This is light rain that's occurring in Bedford, and we're seeing winds that may be topping 55. This is a testament to what's up there. We saw 55-mile-an-hour wind gusts, and we didn't even at the time have anything other than light rain. Where we have the thunderstorms, you can see how this really elevates. So the strongest winds that we're seeing, let's zoom in, Rick, on what goes from around the Gene Snyder and 64 southward into Bullitt County. So this is Taylorsville Road right here. Rick, what are we looking at? Maybe 65 here, 63?
Yeah, 60 probably.
In the
60s.
winds or the knots?
60 for the winds, miles per hour.
Okay, and so as we go now, this is going to be Billtown Road exit right here, and this is going to be the northeastern part of Bullitt County, and here's Spencer County. So right here is where Taylorsville is located, and right here is near Elk Creek. We've got what looks like some 70, maybe 71, 72 in there.
Yep, that's a 70 knot.
Okay, so this is about 80-mile-an-hour winds. What are we talking, 1,800, 2,000 feet, Rick?
About 1,600 feet off the ground.
Okay, so we know that it may be a little bit weaker as you get down to the ground, but this justifies the 70. I'm concerned if I'm in Elk Creek, and I'm concerned if I'm in Taylorsville, that I may be seeing 70-mile-an-hour winds. This is the reason why when we started this whole thing yesterday, Rick, those are stronger. When we started this whole thing yesterday.
Those are 76.
So the conversion on that's about 85. 85-mile-an-hour winds. 60's bad.
That's 87.
87. 60's bad. 70 does a lot of damage. That's showing up 1,600 feet above the ground at 87 miles an hour. And that's approaching Elk Creek. Understand what we're talking about. This is not when we were earlier in the year when we didn't have leaves on our trees. This is going to cause a lot of damage as this goes through the Elk Creek area and through Taylorsville. Please be aware these are elevated, these are destructive, damaging winds that are moving across our area right now. Rick, continue to keep an eye on this. Matthew, I want to take a look at what you've been viewing. You've been focused on where we have tornado warnings. Update on what you're seeing ongoing in our area right now.
Yeah, so I'm focused in on the Western Kentucky Parkway between Litchfield and Fragrant. That's where we have an area of rotation that is tornado warned, not tornado confirmed, but tornado warned at this time, radar indicated. And you know, I could see a brief spin up come out of this thing from you know, the winds pushing out of this storm, and a quick wrap up I think would be possible. This isn't going to be your super strong, your supercell type of thing that we've seen in St. Louis and other places.
So you're kind of saying that we are transitioning probably more towards damaging wind, but we may still get a spin up.
A spin up is possible. It's not the most likely scenario. Your most likely damage threat is coming from the damaging wind straight line out of these storms of 70 to potentially 80 miles per hour like we've been calculating.
And so this is right near the Litchfield area, but even as you go north of that, we've got, that's the rotation. There's potentially very strong winds that are approaching Eastwood, that are going north and approaching E-Town. I'm going to take a look at our camera in the E-Town area. This is looking west. Just want to give this a moment here. Rick, can you take a look at what's going on in Adair County as well? Sure. I just want to see if we're getting anything that would appear to be power explosions out of E-Town. Remember, we showed you live on our camera in Louisville when the power outages started exactly where they started. We were able to see those power lines exploding. Remember, that wasn't lightning because it wasn't top down, it was bottom up. And we knew when we saw bottom up that it's not, you cannot have lightning coming this way. So when it bottom up illuminates the base of the cloud, that is going to be power lines exploding. Not seeing that right now in the E-Town area, not seeing that right now in the E-Town area. Matthew, you're viewing what's going on here in the southern part of our area. This is going to be, this is the tornado warning that is now exited Adair County.
So there's still a warning for parts of far southern Adair County, Glens Fork included in that, but you're no longer underneath a tornado risk. To make that very clear, folks, in Adair County, you don't have a tornado risk any longer. Your warning will be chopped back here soon. It's Russell Springs to Jamestown toward Ely that we've got that tornado threat, so outside of our area.
Okay, Matthew, continue to watch those storms heading towards E-Town. Rick DeLuca is lasered in between Elk Creek and Taylorsville in Spencer County. Rick, when I see you look over me and try to get my attention, I know that doesn't mean good things.
I don't even like saying this, but this is Taylorsville Road. This is just south of Elk Creek. We're looking at a gate with knots of 86.
And Rick, what height is that?
That's at 1,800 feet.
Rick, just out of curiosity, is that, I know there's other ones around there that are close. Let's just say we toss that 87. What are the other ones?
83.
So what you're saying is at about 1,600 feet, we're looking at minimum right now heading into Elk Creek that is about 93 miles an hour.
98 if you do the conversion.
Okay, so Rick is going to continue to watch this. If you're in Elk Creek, you must take this seriously. This is a destructive storm that's moving across our area. So you guys have been watching the counties around our area and kind of getting us updated on what we know for damage. Fallon, you've watched some counties outside of Louisville. What do you know?
Right, so we are following the path really of the storm from Shepherdsville, Mount Washington, Elk Creek, Taylorsville. We see it on this outage map. When we spoke last, it was 4,500. That is more than double. That is now 10,289.
This is Salt River. Understand, this is not Metro Louisville. 10,000 people without power in Bullitt into Spencer County is a significant number. This is going to take some time to be cleaning this up. These are destructive storms. Gil, you've been focused on Metro Louisville. We started off this newscast, we had about 300 without power. We're now sitting at 1027. What do you know?
And it was 12,000 at the last update, and that next update is going to come here in the next minute or so. I do want to talk to you about a post in the last 5 minutes that's come out from MetroSafe. We know this storm slammed through Louisville, working its way from the south into downtown. Well, a post about 5 minutes ago from MetroSafe is saying it's getting slammed with 911 calls. When there's too many calls for the call takers to answer, it goes to a hold message, basically. They are telling people not to hang up if you have an emergency. Somebody will answer as soon as they are available. So if you call 911 and you get that hold message, do not hang up.
And it's worth also mentioning, guys, that if you see a down power line, you don't approach something like this. This is ultra dangerous. If you don't know if it's energized, and if you go towards it, you just don't know how the story could end. We want to keep you safe. Gil, when you get that next update, let me know.
It's coming right here. I just refreshed the page here. If you give me just a couple of seconds, I'm going to scroll down to it. I know it's significant because I saw the top number jump as well.
Okay, and remember, we were 12,000 about 15 minutes ago.
And we are at 21,500 now. Yes. So
21,000 Louisvillians without power.
Right now. And really, basically 21,000 who have lost their power in the last 20 minutes.
And Gil, you were focusing in on around the airport, through southwest Louisville, Shively, PRP. We saw some of that extending towards Fairdale. where is your focus now in terms of the damage? Is it still focused only in southwest Louisville, or is it expanded?
No, and you can see if you look at the map up here, it's marched to the east. So we're seeing a big chunk in the St. Matthews area as well. We're seeing in the Middletown, New LaGrange Road area, and there's one up here to the north, is northeast edge of the city as well. So we're seeing how that storm just kind of fanned out, as you were saying, like leaves. It fanned out across the city and wiped out the power as it marched through.
And if we could just keep an eye with our reporters, let us know when you guys have any information. Let's go back over. Rick, you've been looking at this. Last time I spoke to you, we were watching this about to head towards Elk Creek. We were concerned that we may have winds about 1,600 feet above the ground, that we're approaching 100 miles an hour. Where do we stand right now? So this is, just so we're clear, this is about to cross over the Spencer-Shelby County line. So specifically, you're heading towards southern Shelby County, and ultimately this is going to go between Shelbyville and around the Mount Eden area. What is radar telling you?
Radar's telling us the winds aren't quite as strong, but not that I want you to let your guard down. We're still looking at knots, which are in the neighborhood of 75 miles per hour. So we're looking at maybe, I'm sorry, or 60, sorry, 75, so yeah, 85 mile per hour wind, which is still insane. I mean, that you're talking about, that's the wind strength between an EF0 and an EF1 tornado.
And it's not covering 100 yards.
It's not this. It is fanned out, and it is pressing off to the east. And it has not slowed down. In fact, the number of gates on here has stayed very similar.
Consistent.
Yeah, it's very consistent. So that's why there's really no doubt in my mind that as we travel from Spencer County into Shelby County, we are going to see these winds carry through. And just some of the roads that they're moving toward now: Southville Pike, Finchville Road.
And what's that major there?
And that's Mount Eden Road.
So if you're on the southern end of Mount Eden Road, what's the junction point there on the south side of Mount Eden?
That's the south side. That's with Southville Pike.
So Southville Pike and Mount Eden Road, 75 mile an hour winds are moving in your direction.
Absolutely.
Matthew, I saw you looking in here. And I'm going to roll it back one scan.
Yes.
This is what you were looking at.
I was trying to get confirmation from the National Weather Service to see what they were thinking.
So this is rolled back one frame. I saw you laser focus between Lacone and Millerstown. Why?
Because the green started to pop a little bit more here on our velocity couplet that would be in between the green and the red in the Millerstown area. You saw a new latest scan just came in.
And it went down, which speaks to your idea that these may be the quick spin-ups.
Yeah, if it's going to happen, it's brief.
Right, but at the same time, these are things that can enhance damage.
Tornado warning just came out for that area.
And that's exactly what Matthew just saw. So Matthew was keyed in before the tornado warning was issued. Tornado warning has now come out for that area here. Can we just back that and zoom out a little? I just want to see where we have the tornado. Is it broad? It is broad. So this is going to be south of E-Town. This is approaching Hodgenville, right over the Millerstown area right now, and it is heading towards I-65. This is nighttime potential for tornadoes are not good to begin with. But, going across an interstate is a really bad situation. Where is our crew right now driving on? I see them on the bottom right here. Do we know exactly where they're traveling? Assuming Metro Louisville.
I think this is the camera.
Okay, 65 north heading towards Jefferson County. So this was our crew that was in the E-Town area earlier that's coming back to Louisville now. Okay. Rick, I'm going to come over to you on Storm View 3D. You've been now focused on the area that just went under a tornado warning. We saw it from Matthew's perspective. On the analyst, are you seeing a similar where maybe the winds were more rotating about 6 minutes ago and maybe less now? Or are you seeing some?
Yeah, I think I'm right on board with Matthew. There was a tiny little couplet that did emerge right there, and then it went away. So again, it converted back to more of a straight line wind threat. But whether it's spinning or it's not spinning, these are very strong winds that are approaching Sonora, approaching Upton, approaching Bonneville, have now moved out of Glendale and are now basically just south of E-Town.
And by the way, our Bryce Jones, who probably shouldn't be working tonight, is Bryce Jones has sent us in some pictures. If you guys can check Bryce Jones' feed, he's saying about 1.5 miles north of Valley Station that there are large branches, fence damage, decks that are damaged, and I'm looking at some of his pictures, and there are trees that are torn apart. This is what we were worried about, and we are seeing that happening right now. I'm going to take you to E-Town briefly on our camera. Let's see. So in terms of intensity of wind, are we seeing any of those upward emanating flashes that would indicate power outages or damage being done in E-Town? We saw that live on air in the Louisville area. I think that particular video is going to live in the infamy of this city, watching those power lines exploding.
I've never seen anything like that.
To see with detail the explosions occurring is jarring. E-Town right now, I'm not seeing upward emanations. I'm seeing a lot of lightning that's occurring right now. We're watching that really, really closely. Matthew, you're keyed in on Grayson County, eastern Grayson County, heading into Hart County, southern part, or let's say LaRue County. This is where we have our tornado warning. And I just got a message from somebody saying, Mark, I'm in Grayson County. Can you focus on it? Matthew, let's do exactly that.
So in eastern Grayson County, this storm is moving outside of your area. And the part that I'm most concerned with for a potential quick, brief spin up is going to be east of Millerstown, so outside of the Grayson County area. There is a small little batch of Grayson County that's still out ahead of these storms, the Broadford, Pine Springs area, but within a couple of minutes, Grayson County doesn't really have to worry about this any longer. It's going to be the folks that are east of Millerstown heading toward Upton and Bonneville. I'd say right between there, if you're between Millerstown, Upton, Bonneville, and that triangular area, that's going to be the most likely scenario for a quick, brief spin-up.
And so the pictures continue to come in here. I believe we do have the Bryce's pictures here, so you can see some trees that are just shredded. This is, if you look at there's some deck damage there, but you can see that this is just different. All those trees have leaves on them and they're parachutes that pulled. And they pulled these trees apart and did damage in our area. We're continuing, Fallon and Gill are continuing to look at what we have for reports. They're checking Clark County because we're getting reports of Clark County that there is some damage you can see there. This is a tree limb that was taken down as well. You can see the air conditioning unit there. Super busy in our area here as we continue to watch damage occurring. One of the things that we pride ourselves on, Rick, is as a team, we want to be seeing in the real time. This is something we always say it's important. Getting that information out, knowing in the instant. So one thing I want to tell you, if you're watching us on TV, obviously you're getting us as we talk. I do want to mention, if you're watching on WDRB Plus, just a reminder, best practice for the Plus is about every 10 minutes, just refresh that feed to make sure that it's the most frequent. Rick, you're looking specifically in Sonora. Compare this to what you were looking at in the northern part of our area, or north of this. That was near basically the Mount Eden area. Are we looking at similar scenario now?
Not a similar scenario. That was sort of a central core of winds that was traversing across the area. This is more of a line that extends from, let's say, just to the east of E-Town, slivers and snakes between Hodgenville. It's just out of Sonora, just to the west of Upton, and then arcs back near Bonneville and into the Wax area. So this is the line of some stronger winds, not quite as strong as they were in Mount Eden, but in this line, you'll get powerful winds, and perhaps one of those little spin-ups can occur with inside of that. So that's why now we're watching a much larger area, which extends from E-Town through Wax.
It's made that move.
Right. We've made this move, and now we've seen that transition over to the wind threat with the brief spin-up. Like we said before, it was tornado hail. Now it's wind spin-up. And that's a different scenario. But now that it's 10:37, the sun is down. When you have damage like this, when some people are trying to sleep, it just creates a whole other level of danger.
And understand the physics of radars. So radars can see what's coming in or going away. And so you're like, well, Mark, if that's the case, when those storms were going down Gene Snyder, we could see all the direction. It was always pushing away from the radar. It had to be super accurate. If we're looking at Sonora and the winds are from the west, we're not seeing the full westerly component because we're looking at remember, only what's coming and going away from the radar. So that wind could even be a little bit stronger because radar is not positioned as well. But on the northern side, one would expect those to be a little bit higher. Little notch there off to the east of E-Town heading towards the New Haven area. Be aware of that, showing some signs of rotation. Rick, let's take it further to the north on the analyst right now. I want to go and look at, you were watching Shelby County. Let's update. How does it look now in Shelby County? Is it as strong as it once was? Have we seen a weakening? Is the same level of intensity of wind in there?
I'm going to take you right in just north of Mount Eden. This is in Shelby County, just south of the Wadi Peytonia exit. This is P Ridge Road, and it's showing gates of 71, which would say about
77, 78, 80.
Low end 80s, upper 70s.
But now that, what are we talking about, 2,000
But this is also way up. So we're talking about now 3,000 feet up. So this is, I mean, you got to think you're looking in a very high up top of the thunderstorm.
So I'm going to go over to the wall here real quickly, Matthew. I want to do some tracking, spending some time on what's going on around our area. I'm going to head back over to Storm View HD. And Matthew, what I'd like to start with is the wide perspective, and then I want to do some tracking on what we have ongoing. I said that we would probably end up north of 60, 70% of our area going under warnings. I wish that we could get a scenario where that if we tell you X is going to happen every single time, it will. I think that in the end of all this, and I said it earlier, that people are going to feel that this led up or lived up to what we expected. Now that said, in Madison and around Scottsburg and around Salem and through around, let's say, French Lick, you were an area that didn't get as much, and that is just the reality. Large severe thunderstorm warnings, they're really putting out these big ones here. So the severe thunderstorm warning here, Matthew, let's track the front of the line. Let's zoom in towards, I want to focus, on Shelby County and what's moving out of the county, because we know that we're looking at gates here that are in the neighborhood of around 80 miles an hour, which would translate to probably 68 miles an hour. These have been racing off to the east between 65 and 75 miles an hour. Alton, 4 minutes from now, the potential is there for 70-mile-an-hour winds. 6 minutes from now in the Frankfurt area. For sales, you're looking at 16 minutes from now in Lexington, 30 minutes from now. We'll move down the line, continue to do this exercise all along the line. Bardstown's under a severe thunderstorm warning. Not necessarily for what's over you right now, but what you're going to notice near Boston is it has a harder front edge to it. Looks more bowing. This is going to be a very good translation to more damaging to destructive winds. Matthew's tracked that little area near the Bardstown area. Matthew, what I'd like to do is I want to track from around Boston through south of Hodgenville, where we have that bow. That small bow segment here is going to be a high likelihood of producing damaging winds near New Haven. Let's track that area off to the east. These are going 65 to 75. New Haven, be prepared for 70-mile-an-hour winds in 4 minutes. Attila, you're talking, Attila around 9 minutes from now, St. Mary 16 minutes, 27 minutes in the Bradfordsville area, Gravel Switch 30 minutes from now. We'll continue the travel towards the south. I'm not going to focus specifically on one when we track where the tornado warning is, but can we scope, Matthew, briefly from Hodgenville? I want to scope from Hodgenville, Magnolia to Bonnieville, just to make sure in terms of what we have is their rotation. So let's move that, Matthew, through here. Okay, keep going. I'm seeing more straight line winds than anything.
Little
straight
blip
line.
down
Okay, there we
further to
go.
the south.
Yep, that's the one that bothers me right there. So that is an area of rotation right now. A quick spin-up tornado may occur near the Bonnieville area. That's the kind of thing that we're going to be watching for. Bonnieville approaching you, going over I-65. There could be a spin-up. Look, if it's an EF1, EF0 tornado, or if it's 70-mile-an-hour winds, it doesn't necessarily matter. The new scan showing that rotation area dropped off just a little bit. Let's zoom back out just a touch. I want to do that track now along that segment of the line. So we're going to go from Hodgenville south to Munfordville, track that off to the east. And you can see now on our map on the bottom corner here, we have a monumental number of locations within our area that are under warnings. Fallon, Gill, I'm going to come back to you guys here momentarily for an update on outages. 9 minutes from now in the Allendale area, 13 minutes from now in Summersville. 70-mile-an-hour winds are going to be in play for you. Campbellsville 22, Manville 28, and 34 minutes from now in the Casey Creek area. These are the storms. I hope this gives you now a timeline. We know we've seen damage in our area from these storms that have moved through. Fallon and Gill, when we started this, You guys were talking about in some of these counties either 0 or hundreds of people without power. It's a different animal now.
It certainly is. We looked over in Clark County, Mark, and again, not at the start of when we came on the air, not a lot of outages, but in Clark County, particularly in the Clarksville area and the Utica Pike area, there was a cluster of about 3,000 outages. And Mark, you may not have noticed this on Twitter, but you just got tagged in a tweet from Jeffersonville Fire, which kind of aligns with what we were saying around Utica Pike, because that tweet says that there is a tree down in the road in the 1700 block of Utica Pike in Jeffersonville, and it asks the public to please use caution. Well, we know there's 1,000 outages right at that area of Utica Pike as well.
Okay, so and Fallon, you've been also watching Salt County. I'm sorry, Salt
River Electric. But I do want to add to this Clark County. I've looked at Duke Energy and Clark County REMC. Both are about 3,000. So collectively, it adds up to about 6,500 customers without power in Clark County, Indiana. As for Salt River Electric, we talked about Shepherdsville, Mount Washington, the Taylorsville area. You see that whole row of outages where that storm passed through. They are now up to 12,541 people affected by these storms.
And so the amazing thing about this out of Clark County is that Clark County didn't get really much other than light rain. It just shows to what's up there. When you have that much wind energy aloft, that's the scenario where you can, even with light rain, I don't remember this much wind out of light rain, but this is an absolutely outstandingly powerful atmosphere. Rick, the warnings that we're getting now, the Weather Service has basically said you're going to get damaging winds. That's a monumental warning right now in our southeast counties.
So we call those blanket warnings because they are so large and cover a large amount of real estate. That's for winds which are considerable, 70-mile-per-hour winds possible within inside of that. What I want to do is show you what could quickly unfold inside of that big, large warning. Remember that little spin up we were talking about near Bonnieville? So I'm going to go back a couple of scans right there. You see a little pop of green, a little couplet that did form. So maybe a brief spin up near Bonnieville. That was one scan. And then in the next scan, it's gone. And here's the present, where it is showing, again, not any spin ups, but some more powerful winds now, which are on the eastern side of Bonnieville. So that's going to be the case moving forward. 70-mile-per-hour winds. And inside those severe thunderstorm warnings, you may get one of those spin-ups that Matthew picked up on just outside of Bonnieville. And that's going to
happen fast.
They're going to happen very fast. So you should probably just be in a safe place now. And also, another important note, Louisville, I'm talking to you. The storms are through. The atmosphere, it's like a cell phone. All of the battery has been drained. You're in the red and you're almost gone. So if you're in Louisville, you can kind of breathe easier here. It does look like the severe threat is coming down in the city.
You know, one of the things, and we live in this community, we're a part of our area. When we deal with this stuff, I don't know about you two, but I always have that wonderment. I know what radar showed going over my house.
Right.
And when I leave here, when this is all said and done, this winds down, and our severe thunderstorm warnings are over, and we're going to get into the quiet tomorrow where people do have to clean up. Like you guys, I just wonder when I drive into my neighborhood, is my neighborhood going to look the same as when I left? Or are there going to be trees down? Or am I going to be one of the people that suffered roof damage? Because so many have. And I think that's one of the hardest things we do. Sometimes you'll see some of us step away for a moment.
Yeah, I mean, I just texted my wife. I said, you need to go into the safer room where there aren't trees around. She got away from these windows, and I told her, you're good. It just took a quick second, but my heart starts beating really fast when that happens, and I get nervous, and knowing what could happen there, basically what I'm seeing on radar, and I don't want anything bad to happen to them. So it's like, we're watching out for you where you live, because we know people all across the map. It's not just one spot. There's so many people that we have connections with that we know, or our friends and family know. So, like you said, it's a community, and we're looking out for everyone.
And it is hard to digest. We try our best to turn into, remember, this is a job, and focus specifically on what you need to know in those moments. But when it all winds down, when the moment of this severe weather comes to an end and we can kind of catch our breath, there's always that moment of what happened, and you just don't know on what it's going to look like. Matthew, I see you peering in on what's occurring in the New Haven area, what's approaching Holy Cross, Raywick, Loretto. These are really, really strong winds in there. Rick, can you get me also, by the way, on that warning, are we talking 60s or 70s on that blanket?
The blanket or 70s?
So Matthew, you're keying in on where those are.
Yeah, just past New Haven, crossed over 31 East there, and it's going to basically be right between Gleanings, I assume is how you pronounce that, and Balltown, heading toward Holy Cross. The latest one that just came in, that latest scan, not pretty, because now we don't just have pink, we've got that orange color in there, and that's indicative of winds that are probably going to be well above 70 miles per hour, Mark.
And some of this doesn't surprise me. I'll tell you, because when we looked at the radar, remember, we know the winds are going from west to east, and when we were looking due south near E-Town, it just simply, radar by physics cannot sample the strongest winds. It's not what we call tangential. Without getting into the physics of how radar beams work, what we can't see always is the exact wind. We can only see what's moving towards that beam or away from it. So you can do math to extrapolate, and that's generally what I try to do. But now that it's passed, and we know based on the radar location in Fort Knox, we're getting a better view out of the westerly component, and it shouldn't surprise us we're seeing stronger winds. Holy Cross, Dant, Loretto, through around the Gandertown area. All these areas are seeing very, very strong winds. Rick, you're hyper-focused on that on 3D. You've got that same area, Loretto and Raywick and Lebanon and Springfield. These are areas that are about to get hit with a crash of wind.
A crash of wind, which is State Highway 52, where that junctures with St. Francis Raywick Road. That, I mean, you are directly in the path, the apex of that little bow. Another spot we can outline for you would be New Haven Road, again where that links up with North St. Francis Road, and then north of Loretto, Holy Cross Road, where that links up with, I guess, Manton Road. So those are just a couple junctures where if you recognize those streets, if you recognize those interstates and those junctures, then you need to definitely, there we go.
There it is, it's on Loretto. Loretto is 3 minutes, 2 to 3 minutes.
Here it comes. I mean, those are strong winds. Those are knots showing 74,
so
also
83.
2200 up and up. So
we're probably talking 70, 74s.
70, 74 safe. For sure.
And so let me just show you quickly here. We've kind of been watching what has occurred within our area. There are 24,000 people without power in Louisville. I think that this was one of the things we knew we were going to run into an issue with today. Some of what we do sometimes is a real challenge to deal with messaging. If you follow me on any of my social medias or watched me on TV last night, I used this terminology that it was a volatile spatial environment. The fact that we had a supercell travel over 400 miles shows the intensity of what is out there. And if you're wondering what I'm speaking to, I'm going to show you here really quickly because I want you to see we don't know exactly in terms of tornadoes everything that's occurred yet. We'll find out much more on this tomorrow. But I want you to see the storm that's approaching London, Kentucky right now, and I'm actually going to turn off the warnings. I'm going to move this and let this radar span about 12 hours. And what I'm going to show you is something that should blow your mind. I'm going to show you where this storm formed, and I'm going to show you where it is right now. And what should really show you about when I spoke of a volatile atmosphere, watch how that storm generated south of Springfield and then moved all the way towards London, Kentucky. Do not mistake what I'm telling you. This particular supercell, and I'll just give you a distance on it. You can watch it. There it forms. See it? There it is in Paducah. There it is in Bowling Green. There it is approaching London. 463 miles later, this started at around 1:30 p.m. and it has been a severe tornado-warned storm for 10 hours, 9 to 10 hours. If you want to understand why we call this a volatile atmosphere, a dangerous spatial environment, that's the reason why.
And it just nicked our southern county.
Yep.
We got so lucky.
So lucky.
Well, you know, I don't know if we got lucky because of everything that's gone down, but that cell.
But in that path of that cell, I mean, there's going to be copious damage.
You try to every time I think of a supercell this long for our area, my mind only goes to 2021.
Yep.
Now, of course, that was a higher end tornado. But this storm has been going for 9 hours, and I just off the top of my head, in recent years, I can't come up with anything other than 2021 where we had a supercell, an individual supercell that we could track and verifiably say that this has gone for over 9 hours and has covered over 450 miles. Thunderstorms normally last for minutes to hours, individual cells. This one has been trucking along for 9 hours. That blows my mind. It's unbelievable.
Would you say that the storms that we had this morning helped decrease what we could have gotten with the first round?
So what I will say on that is what I think you guys dealt with in the morning laid down the boundary for that storm.
For that storm to follow the whole way.
I think that storm hooked on that boundary near Paducah.
Because, I mean, it moved due east while everything else was going in a northeasterly trajectory.
And that would be my argument.
Yep.
So I think the outflow boundary left by the storms this morning became a focus mechanism, and that storm then hooked on that boundary. Once it hooked on it, you know, over 8 hours, it never let go. The amazing thing, watching the earlier part of this frame, you can see there's a cell that's going in a different direction from it. This was definitely deadlocked on that boundary, and this has been a ridiculously long supercell that may produce a tornado warning in London, Kentucky, 9 hours after it produced a tornado warning, you know, way, way, way further west. Rick, you're focused in on damaging winds approaching Springfield, Kentucky over Loretto. We'll find out what occurred in Loretto, but Loretto, it appears the worst may be occurring or have occurred. Now we need to be looking at you know, Springfield to Lebanon is my most concerning area right now.
Yeah, and it looks like the strongest winds will get sandwiched right between Lebanon and Springfield, which means winds around 70, they're moving your way. They're right on top of Loretto, now moving out, which means the ones next in line are Springfield and Lebanon. St. Rose Road is one that you'll see 70-mile-per-hour winds. Jimtown Road is another one, and last Short Line Pike. If you live along those roads, expect 70-mile-per-hour winds and the possibility for power outages with that, since we've seen Louisville now climb over 20-something thousand without power. Yes, this is certainly a more rural area, but people live here. You know, life goes on, and you're going to see issues. And unfortunately, it's now 10:55, so, you know, it's nighttime. Don't want you to, you know, let your guard down yet if you live in those two locations. We still have a little time to go before we clear these storms out of our area. And Mark, you have a new tornado warning.
Not our area, but Bowling Green 2.0.
Another one?
Yep. Bowling Green went under a tornado warning earlier, and you can see there is a very distinctive hook on that storm that right now is near the Russellville area. You can see, and that is heading towards Bowling Green. Please, if you have friends in Bowling Green, alert them. Let them know that there's a tornado warning moving towards them. All of these warnings are what we would refer to as elevated warnings. Elevated warnings mean that the Weather Service, we have in our toolbox different tools to use for severe weather. We have in the toolbox severe thunderstorm warning. Yep. We have severe thunderstorm warning with considerable. We have catastrophic. We have the same with flash flood. We have tornado warning. We have tornado observed. We have tornado emergency, which we've seen all of these today. And we may be coming to the edge of where we're going to be, but now every single warning is a considerable. So Rick, you and I work a lot of severe weather events together. I don't like to call them run-of-the-mill severe thunderstorm warnings because severe thunderstorm warnings are not issued for no reason. Right. But there's a big difference between a considerable or a catastrophic.
I think what you're saying, it's not your ordinary warning. You know,
and it gets our attention.
It does get your attention. You know, typically you see some people don't even take into account a normal severe thunderstorm warning. They're like, oh, we get these all the time, which I hope that's not the case. But these are not those. They are the next level. Like Mark said, considerable. That's the word we associate with winds that are 70 plus. And that's the kind of warnings that we have. And those are the kind of winds that we're seeing take shape. And unfortunately, south and east of Louisville, we still have to get through these storms. And there's powerful winds. There's that brief spin up. But thankfully, the tornado threat that we saw, that hail threat, we don't have to really focus on that.
And we tend to stay with weather when it poses a threat to life and property, and every one of these warnings have the considerable tag. We don't feel comfortable just moving on. I think that if you're in Springfield or Lebanon right now, you're like, you know, what are these guys just going back and not covering me? And I think that we have made a commitment to weather and being there for you when you need us. And in that, we're just not going to let go and just walk away on you.
No, it looks like that supercell is now confirmed once again.
Oh, unbelievable.
So we don't have any reports of tornado damage in Adair County with that one, but now that it's gotten outside
this may be the supercell of the year.
That's crazy.
I can tell you people are going to be talking about this one. In the weather community, this is going to be talked about a lot because getting a supercell covering 450 miles over 9 hours is just, I know.
And Bowling Green just went confirmed.
Just went confirmed in Bowling Green. If you have friends or family in Bowling Green, alert them.
You know how people like your Facebook feed, or if you're trying to get warnings, they see an old warning?
Yeah.
This is not an old warning. This is a brand new situation. So please don't think this is, oh, I already saw that one. We got one earlier today.
Head to bed.
No, exactly. No, this is a renewed and also a confirmed tornado.
So, Matthew, I saw you break briefly to go and look at what we have in terms of damage. Can we get weather pics up here? Matthew, we're getting obviously reports of damage that has occurred in our area, but you're starting to see it. You're seeing the pictures. Tell us what you're seeing.
Here's a pretty decent tree that Jimmy sent in that was felled by these storms. This one with the first round of storms coming through. But we had a second one totally snapped off this massive, what is that, an oak or maple tree most likely? Most likely a maple. My
You're
goodness.
outside of my skill set.
Snapped that thing in half. Now, there may have been some rotting that was going in there.
Does look like some dry rot.
Yeah. So that tends to happen when you get those big knotty bulges on a big tree like that. But my goodness. I mean, it just threw it into the road, and this is what folks are going to be coming around a corner of a country road or something, and you don't see it because now it's nighttime and nobody's been on that area yet. Hopefully our EMS folks are out there trying to assess situations on county roads and block things off as necessary, but my goodness, I mean, that is a big tree just snapped in two.
And I'll say this to you guys. These are our neighborhoods. Fallon and Gill, you can see they're actually watching the monitor right now, looking at the storm. Guys, this is your town. This is your area. This is your communities, and you guys are watching those storms and looking at the damage and understanding that this has happened where we live. So they're glued to the monitor. Scott's on the desk. Scott, I'm going to come to you in a moment. Not yet, but can you just get me an update on outages? That's going to be what I want to know here. But this is the damage that's occurring back within our viewing area. So in Louisville, is it all clear? Yes. Let's come back here briefly. On camera to us, Louisville. Tornado watch has been canceled and expired. You are in all clear. You still have severe thunderstorm warnings to the east. And since these are elevated warnings, we're not going to release yet. We're going to continue to focus on this. And I don't know if our Christy Batista has been able to get to any damage, but if she can, I would like to go to her as well. So Rick, we've been focused very specifically on what's been occurring in the destructive winds. The destructive wind now is breached our eastern counties out of Shelby. This is now making its march towards Lexington. So if you have friends in Lexington, get them on the horn, let them know that the 70-mile-an-hour winds that have a history of producing damage are about to hit. Rick, you're hyper-focused on what's been occurring in Taylor and in Marion County. What are you seeing, those winds? This has been so persistent, this area of destructive winds.
It's almost crazy how persistent it has been. So this is Washington, Marion County. If you are traveling right down, this is 55 between the two. Let's hope you're not traveling. And if you planned on it, hold off, wait, don't do it, because there's 70-mile-per-hour winds right on top of you right now. And I'm just gonna scroll back a couple of frames just to show you how long these winds have been sustained. So they came through New Haven. They were strong, but watch as we start to see more of these orange pixels show up.
Right.
We have them in Loretto, we have them off to the east of Loretto, and now they are just between Springfield and Lebanon. Not seeing quite as many, and there's a lot more pink showing up too. So the area covered by strong winds is greater, but the strength alone has come down just a touch. I don't want you to let your guard down, but basically between Springfield and Lebanon, you're seeing very strong winds, 60 to 70 miles per hour.
And you know, one interesting thing here, Rick, we talked about just some of radar physics. The winds weren't weak in E-Town.
No. No
what
way.
happened is the radar is looking due south.
Right.
It can only see what's moving towards it. So the winds that it's seeing near E-Town are only winds that have a northerly component. We know that when thunderstorms are coming through in a scenario like this, westerly,
Right.
all westerly. So as we then advance forward, did the winds get much stronger? You can see they pop and explode. Did they get much stronger? No. The
We were able to
radar
see the
could see it.
Better. And they're
That's
still
it.
going.
But now we're talking for 3,500 feet or so above the ground, I assume.
Yeah,
We're getting high.
3,500, which makes a difference. You're looking higher up.
So this may still be translating to 60, 70, even though what we're seeing on radar may be 80. Some have asked me why you have to do that. The reason you have to do that is if we sent the radar beam and we shot it directly at the ground, it'll just run into trees. You won't actually see anything. So the solution to that is we elevate the radar beam about 1/2 degree. That means when it goes out from the radar site, it gets quickly above the trees. That's great. We can see further. The negative to all of that, it means the further you get away from the radar, the higher you're going up in the atmosphere. So these are things that are just part of what we do in terms of analyzing, understanding. We continue here, not our viewing area, but we continue with tornadoes confirmed approaching London and a tornado confirmed approaching Bowling Green. It is tough to digest. Bowling Green's had a tough 5 years. A lot of severe weather moving through. Another severe with tornado another confirmed severe with confirmed tornado on the ground that is moving towards the Bowling Green area. Probably going to drift just a little bit to the south of Bowling Green. And then you can see we continue with thunderstorms right now, Lexington through around Campbellsville. Matthew, at some point I need you to wind down. You've had an incredibly long day and you need to get a little bit of rest. Yes, sir. You have to say it sometimes.
We may have to push him out of the door.
Matthew is one of those guys that, like I say, the work ethic is something that is absolutely exceptional. But Matthew, if you could wind it down, you need to get some rest, my friend. As we look around the area, Rick, you're hyper-focused here on what's ongoing in our southeast counties. After I come to you, Scott, I'm going to come to you for some outage information. Rick, the line's still a broken line, which means tornado is not impossible. Second, what's near Bowling Green could clip Columbia, although the most likely scenario is that the front line pushes through there, stabilizes the atmosphere, and maybe bends that a little bit south or more south towards Albany.
Right, especially because this line is now moving a lot faster. I just want to give a quick update on the actual motion. It is moving east at 65. So with that sort of speed, it would certainly outpace that Bowling Green cell. I would say it's going to push through Glasgow, Columbia, and then we'll see that cell track south of that. But that is, again, some very powerful winds now that are moving into Lebanon, that are moving into Campbellsville. I'm going to switch over to show you the winds, the strongest still, just riding the line of Washington, Marion County, moving closer now to Danville. So those 60 mile per hour, 70 winds, those are getting closer to Danville. And again, that blanket warning covers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 counties. Incredible.
And that just speaks to the confidence in terms of what we know is occurring. We knew that today was a destructive wind scenario. We knew that a moderate risk was justified. You cannot guarantee every location sees, but we have definitely seen damage. Scott, you've been in this business a long time and you understand what I'm going to say, and that is weather is news. You've been watching the other side, watching these storms move across the area and following the damage. What are we seeing now?
Well, what's interesting is I call some relatives that say nothing, and I call friends who say, wow. So, I mean, it's so spotty is what we're seeing. But Jefferson County right now has almost 29,000 customers without power. And that is about 6% of all customers. So 6 out of 100 people, you know, customers don't have power right now. 2,000 in Madison County, LG&E is reporting. That's the second highest county for LG&E that I'm seeing. And then Salt River Electric, it was about 900 customers a little after 10 o'clock, and it jumped within about 45 minutes to over 13,000 customers.
That's a big deal considering the population of Jefferson County versus the population of Bullitt County.
Right.
And the 13,000 is Bullitt County or all Salt?
Well, it's Salt River were electric, and a lot of that was, as I looked at the map, near Shepherdsville, a little bit north of there, and then a little bit east of Shepherdsville is where the biggest conglomeration of people without power occurred. And a little bit of trouble down by E-Town, south of there, with Nolan, RECC. And then in Washington County, Indiana, more than 1,000 without power now. Clark, 3,200 customers without power.
The insanity of that, and I was talking to Jude, in Oldham County, they just got light rain, so did Clark.
Yeah.
It was so insanely powerful aloft that even in light rain, you have thousands without power.
And then you click on the next county on the map, and there will be 5 customers without power, and it's just adjacent. So that shows you where, you know, this was a lot of pockets hitting different areas, right, Mark?
And what we know is in Louisville when this happened, that 911 was getting so many calls that they were having to put people on hold and tell them to wait. They'll get to you. They'll get to you, but it can take time. Number 2, with all the power outages that Scott just mentioned, it's worth saying, if you encounter a down power line, you don't attempt to touch it or cross it, you call. You don't know if that's an energized electric line. You just don't know. There's no way to know. And if you try to find out, the story ends horribly. Scott, we also know that when these storms were west of here in St. Louis, that the storms unfortunately did damage there.
Yeah, and church went down, and we heard about at least 4 deaths there, I believe, in the St. Louis area. So you talked about this, that tornadoes might sprout out of this, and boy, we've seen how many. I don't even want to guess at this point. You've been talking about them all night.
And we'll know tomorrow.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things I said when we were doing this earlier, because you and I kind of talked on set, you were asking, you know, how bad is this going to be? One of the things that we had to emphasize is the fact that when we have a little bit more of the not everybody sees, it can make it worse. And the people that get this severe are going to get it more significantly. So I'm in an area that I know that there's some power outages, and I'm always, you know when I say this, we always wonder when we drive into the neighborhood, what is it going to be like when we get in there? Am I going to be driving to a downed tree? Am I going to have to clean up tomorrow?
Sometimes you expect limbs to be across the road, and you go, wow, our neighborhood didn't get hit, but just a half mile or a mile away they did, and then vice versa. Sometimes you think we got missed because I talked to a neighbor, but you come home and find there's damage near your house. So it's one of those. So, and
we are continuing to try to look and find out what's going on around our area. We do have crews en route that if we can get there before the newscast comes to an end, we'll give you that information. We're going to stay because we still have the warnings ongoing right now with these. Let me go back over to Storm View HD and let me continue to track and analyze what you have ongoing in our area. Scott, continue to let us know if you see any pops. Our southeast counties are where the strongest winds are ongoing right now. Rick, the insanity of all of this, I don't know if it's going to be the fact that we saw destructive winds. I would say that there's 2 things that have just blown my mind out of all of this. The supercell that's probably going to breach 500 miles in the next hour. Yeah. That has a tornado confirmed on the ground in Somerset and had a tornado confirmed on the ground west of Paducah. Wait. Tornado confirmed on a storm that has almost passed the entire state of Kentucky? Think about that. A storm that, I just want to look here because I'm actually curious, how far is this thing going to have to go to get out of state? I can't remember a storm that had produced tornado, and it would have to go another 80 miles. Okay. I know the 2021, was it still a supercell when it left Kentucky and went into Ohio?
I believe so.
So that may have been the last one that breached the entire state. We have a tornado warning.
But it was, you know, spatially, you're talking about this is the longest angle of the state as opposed to crossing it from southwest to northeast.
Now, this has not produced the kind of tornado that occurred on 2021, to be clear. But it shows you the volatility when we said dangerous spatial environment. I remember last night, Rick, coming back there into the office. Everybody that works in the studio sometimes hears me yelling things into the back office, like weather terms or what sounds like alphabet stuff. But when we saw the data last night, the thing that I said to you was this is one of the more dangerous environments that we have seen in our area in years, maybe a couple of years. I don't know if people are going to perceive it as that when it's all said and done. But I can tell you that scientifically speaking, it was very, very concerning. Rick, you've honed in. We've been seeing damaging winds near the Greensburg area, but we also, beyond that, we still have quick spin-up scenarios here.
Yeah, just north of Campbellsville, kind of has my eye a little bit, and I'm concerned. And the
There
new
we go.
scan,
See ya.
and, yeah.
That may have been a quick little downdraft too. That may have looked like that was or parallel to the beam.
It could have been, but it's just, again, one of those little areas where you get some either straight downburst winds where thunderstorm collapses or perhaps a little spin up.
Right.
Either one can't be ruled out. It's just one of those situations where we're going to have to watch this area of strong winds continue through the rest of Greene County, the west of Taylor County, and then eventually through Adair.
And so the strongest winds on that particular portion of the storm are very close to Campbellsville right now. So if you're in Campbellsville, please take this storm seriously. Let me scope that out for you. You can see that these winds are probably in the neighborhood of 60 to 70. I'm going to tell you that I don't think they're as strong as they were. I do think that we're seeing a pulse downward. It's 11:13 at night. Physics is physics. You cannot continue these going like this indefinitely. The storms are going to have to weaken at some point, and data was highly suggestive that that would occur somewhere as they approach the I-75 corridor. I just want to show you this absolute beast that is near Mount Vickery, near London. The insanity of this storm is mind-blowing. How far it has traversed, how long it has had a tornado warning on it, and I'm just going to show you the information. A storm that started near Springfield, Missouri, traveled 9 hours over 450 miles, is still producing a considerable threat with a tornado confirmed on the ground, heading towards Mount Vickery, could head towards London with 2-inch size hail. 2-inch size hail, 9 hours after it formed, with a tornado confirmed on the ground. This is absolutely a really legendary supercell. I think you might be able to argue one of the supercells of the year. So let's do a storm track on here. Remember, these storms are rocketing off to the east. National Weather Service continues with their blanket warnings, fully, rightfully justified, because they're traveling such a large distance and they have been so consistently severe. 3 minutes from now, it's in the Danville area. 13 minutes from now in Lancaster, Kentucky. Middleburg, 15 minutes from now. 25 minutes from now in the Richmond, Kentucky area. 32 minutes from now, it'll be in Conway. And 41 minutes from now, my hope is I can say all clear for everybody and we can stop talking. I think sometimes people have this idea that meteorologists like to talk. I probably won't be talking at all tomorrow. You know what I'll probably do tomorrow? I think I'm going to sit in my house. I think I'm going to talk to nobody. I got a new telescope piece. I think I'm going to test it. I think I'm probably going to see if I can get my voice to recover after all of this, and I'm going to mind my own business and maybe not even leave the house.
Okay, well, I'm in serious trouble because I have a 3-year-old who will not stop talking.
You got to recover that voice, though.
It's going. It's going.
So you're shot too. Mine's pretty close.
It's going. So she's going to be asking me questions and chatting, and you're going to be there in silence.
You're going to have to write it down.
I'm coming to your house. Are you kidding me? I'm coming over.
And I will be just sitting there.
Just mute. Just zip her.
Hey, what are you doing? Nothing. What about you? Nothing. So storms continue to move across the area. Louisville all clear, Seymour all clear, North Vernon all clear. You're all clear in the Bedford area, Jasper all clear right now in French Silicon Paoli, all clear in Salem, Madison, Scottsburg, Henryville, Clarksville, Jeff. All clear for you in the Corridon area, all clear in Brandenburg, all clear in Hardinsburg, all clear in Shelbyville, all clear as we go towards around Madison, all clear in Bedford, Kentucky, and Carrollton. Still have severe concerns. A lot of lightning out of it. That's one of the things I think that was jarring on this is you know that the fuel's crazy when you have this kind of lightning.
We saw spider lightning.
We saw a lot of it actually on Facebook
crazy.
Live. So one of the things I hope that we recorded, I hope we recorded those power lines exploding.
That's the other thing. Yeah.
We talked about this earlier, but the camera network was it was actually the dream of our boss, Barry Fulmer. Barry Fulmer is our news director. Barry was here, left for a couple of years, is back here. And Barry, one of his dreams always was to have this network of cameras that we could see exactly what's going on. Obviously, storm chasers offer a unique perspective, but the cameras offer the same perspective that a storm chaser can, except they're elevated, but they can't move. Yeah. But when we saw that camera pop and we saw that first flash, there was this moment where I was, you know, I was like, whoa.
Right. You don't see that very often. I mean, it's an indicator that damage is being done.
You know, those are people.
Yeah.
Those are houses. Those are tree limbs. And you know it's not just it's a severe thunderstorm warning, you know it's a confirmed.
Right. And you see, like, as the flashes happen, you could actually see more areas
going
dark. I mean, just to see that from a camera is wild because it gives us a bird's eye view of these storms, and also having cameras in certain communities kind of strategically spread out around the area. You know, if you live in the town, you can say, all right, I don't need to look out the window. We have these cameras, which we always have online, by the way, WDRB.com. We have those cameras, so even on a quiet day, if you want to look at those, I mean, they are always there. They are so valuable, and like you always say, it's a tool in the toolbox, but it's one of those tools you use a lot.
And Rick, on regular velocity on yours, I'm curious, I know you have relative, which is great for rotation. I'm going to come back over to you onto the analyst here real quickly. So it definitely looks like the most intense winds are now breaching our area.
Correct.
But Campbellsville is probably still looking at some 60-mile-an-hour winds, Lebanon, Bradfordsville. These are still jarring level winds that are occurring in some parts of our area.
Yeah, I mean, and this is not something that you want to see. Thankfully, they're not the winds that once were, but if you're in Mansville, Campbellsville, Merrimack, Bradfordsville, you are seeing some winds around 60 miles per hour. The warning itself is for 70s. It does look like we're not seeing any of those really bright gates like the orange ones we once had. Those have just moved out of the area. They are now in Mitchellsburg and south of Perryville, moving toward Danville and Junction City. So if you did want to give someone a heads up that you know in that location, go for it. But now it's moving just to the east of Campbellsville, and this will move through Nifley. Cane Valley may get clipped, but it does look like as we go further south down the line, from Greensburg through Pierce, the winds aren't quite as strong.
And so we've had you and I have been manning the storms, the analysis, the what's going on. We have a large news department that mans the what has it done,
right,
which is equally important. So when we saw those power flashes, we knew that we were getting some damage across the area. Scott, you're manning the desk. What are you seeing in our area? Any changes? We know that we had, last time you and I sat together, we had 29,000 without power in Louisville.
Yes, about 29,000 in Jefferson County, about 6% of customers. The total LG&E number for all their coverage area is almost 43,000, about 4% of more than 1 million people. KU reporting 18,000 outages, about 3% plus of their total customers. I found a couple interesting numbers. Shelby County has 800, Spencer County with just 125. But the one that really set the bells off when I was looking at every county that's served, Henderson County. 60% of the customers in Henderson County, Kentucky, if you know someone who lives there, they probably don't have power. More than half of the people there are without power right now. It's around 2,000 customers. And Oldham County barely touched, about 255 in some open areas with a lot of trees. You know, when storms hit there, it can be pretty bad. But Oldham not hit nearly like Jefferson was. I saw a lot of the outages on the map really in the Shively area. If you just drew a circle around it, 3-4 mile radius, a lot of the outages for LG&E are in that area, Mark and Rick.
And beyond just our area, it is a very dangerous night that's evolving on a cell that has been producing on and off tornadoes for 9 hours. Rick, heading towards London, Kentucky, the verbiage on this one is bad. It's really bad. It's in the middle of the night, and this could be a life-threatening killer tornado that could be occurring.
3 words: particularly dangerous situation. Not something that we like to say, but that is the verbiage that they are giving to this particular cell. It is a radar-confirmed tornado, life-threatening situation, flying debris, could be deadly, mobile homes destroyed, considerable damage to homes, businesses, and vehicles, likely to see complete destruction. It's possible.
So
I'm just reading that verbatim from the Weather Service.
Large and extremely dangerous tornado is heading towards London, Kentucky at 11:22 at night. Hopefully things work out well. Hopefully it weakens before it gets there. The storm has been an epic, 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 epic supercell. You know, and when we talked about a very dangerous spatial environment, this cell has been that cell.
Yeah, this cell's going to be studied, I'm sure.
It's unbelievable, unbelievable what's occurring here. So if you have any friends or family in London, please get them on the phone and tell them, guys, your life is at risk. You need to get to a place where you are safe. And if you don't, this is a situation where you could lose your life on. It is unnerving to see this stuff. It's horrible when you see it in the afternoon. When you see something like this at night, you just know how bad it can be. Hopefully, like I said, it weakens before it gets into London. I suspect if it doesn't weaken before it gets in London, we may see them go tornado emergency. Right now, they have not. We're not that far away from the worst breaching our viewing area. Rick, another interesting point here. You and I talked about this in Bowling Green, that it might take a hard right turn. The tornado warning is now taking a hard right turn. So what we're seeing here is an evolution. The evolution of the storms of what has moved from damaging, from tornado producing to, at least on the main line, to destructive winds. The storm in London is going to get caught. And you can see what's coming through Campbellsville is moving faster than what's going in London. Eventually, that's going to get overtaken. When that happens, that storm will weaken. It's probably within 45 to 60 minutes of that happening, and it will be a storm that has persisted for 9 to 10 hours.
That may be what ultimately shuts that thing down. I mean,
that will be the thing that shuts it down.
That's the only thing out there to do it.
Right. Once that anvil gets to there and overtakes that storm, it's game over. But you can see now what's pushing through Campbellsville is now pushing what was going through Bowling Green southeast. So that's going to be the show, guys. That show will breach our area in around 20 to 25 minutes. At that point, we'd probably release and be done for the night. We'll watch the storms. Our belief is that when there's a threat to life and property, we're not going to hang you guys out to dry and bail on you. That's not what we do. So please understand that our job is to cover, and we're going to make sure whether you're in Jefferson County, our most populous county, or whether you're in a different county, we're watching you. It's very, very, very strong winds right now have passed through the Campbellsville area. They're right now just south of Bradfordsville. These are going to be 60 to 70 mile-an-hour winds. If you're in this area, be aware. This is potentially destructive winds. Radar updates just came in, breaching the county line. It's getting very, very close. Storms right now are near the Perryville area and will continue their movement off towards the east. I think what we're going to probably do here is our newscast technically ends at 11:28:30. Andy, if you could talk to me in my ear, what goes on after the newscast? If there's nothing there, I may stay with it for another 10 or 15 minutes. If there's something there that's important, we would then, okay, so I'm just going to let our production team know then, since it's not important. These are high-end warnings. Let's continue to stay with the warnings and move them through Adair County. And once we get them through, we'll end the show here on the severe weather. So we'll continue to monitor. The greatest threat now of seeing severe would be for our viewing area east of Campbellsville. Over Greensburg, it hasn't shown a high-end signal for very, very high-end winds. Ultimately, Kane Valley, Columbia, Glens Fork, and then it will be goodbye on those storms. Rick, you're looking at this from analysts. Tell me what you've got inside of there in terms of winds and what's going on. The line looks like it's starting to break down a little bit. The hard front edge near Danville is not a hard front edge near Pierce, Greensburg, and Campbellsville.
No, and this thing is cooking at 65, which is nice because you see that purple polygon at the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. That is that confirmed tornado, which means this will outpace that particular cell, and that will erase the tornado threat, or at least that particular cell getting into our area, which is why storms are smart. I mean, they want to chase where the better fuel is, and that's why it has made that far right-hand turn, and they have transitioned from an observed to now just a regular tornado warning. We just have Adair County to get through. In the meantime, if you're in Horse Cave, if you're in Greensburg, you're probably up. These storms definitely rattle your windows from Campbellsville through the Nifley area. Heavy rain, lightning, which is probably just insane at this point in time. These are like strobe shows because of the number of lightning strikes that we have ongoing. Outside of that, I just want to make sure we don't have any concerning winds. I would say if there's any strong winds, it's going to be in Taylor County, the far eastern portion moving into Marion County south of Bradfordsville. And once that core slides through, that will be the strongest winds just moving out. So again, just going to zoom into that area. That's east of Merrimack. That's right on top of Liberty Road. That's also Dry Creek Road. And this is heading just off to our east. So yes, those are the strongest winds right now where you see that pop of orange. Elsewhere, the winds are not as strong as we travel south and west through Greensburg and into the Noblick area.
And so we told you that when we got our crew that was on scene that could see some of the damage that we would go right to her. So our Christy Batista is on Elmhurst Road in PRP. Christy, you watched those storms. The last time I talked to you, I heard the eerie sounds of those tornado sirens wailing. You're seeing the aftermath now of what those storms did.
Yeah, so we were in E-Town hearing those sirens, and now we're hearing the other sirens, those emergency sirens. We're now in PRP on Elmhurst Avenue off of Rockford Lane here at Joe Houchin's house. Joe, tell us what happened. There's a tree in your backyard right now. It hit your garage, which you were actually in because you were worried about the trees in your front lawn.
Right. So we were in the garage and watching WDRB, and we heard a big boom. Actually, the storm started heating up, wind started getting strong, and we heard a big boom and didn't realize that this actually happened until later on when we came out. But it's a whole top of a tree that fell down in between the fence and the garage. Luckily, it didn't go this way further, or it would have been pretty bad because we were in there.
And Joe, you were using a flashlight to check things out. We put our light up and you saw it in a whole different light. Tell us what's going through your head now.
Well, I didn't know it was this bad until y'all turned these lights on. But yeah, it's pretty bad.
I don't know if you can tell, but Joe's got a pool back here. So what are you assessing as you're looking at this, Joe?
New pool. I mean, this is pretty bad. We were getting ready to have this pool redone, liner put in and everything, but I guess gonna have to get a new pool now.
So Memorial Day plans maybe have changed.
Oh yeah, it's kind of down the drain. Yeah.
What do you think you're going to see tomorrow when you actually got sunlight going?
Probably about the same, but just more reality, more brighter, more, we'll be able to see the more damage, the more. I don't know what it did to the back of the garage, but probably be more damage than what we see here.
And this is one of the areas that does have a power outage.
Yeah.
We pulled in. I mean, you can't see anything over here, but it looked like across the street there was more damage, more trees down too.
Yeah, there's trees down in the field across the street here. There's a tree down on the lady's house right across the street. Don't know if it was just straight line winds that came this way or something else, but evidently it was something that came this way and did the damage toward this way.
Well, Joe, all things considered, I'm glad you and your wife are okay. Of course, we'll have to wait until the sun comes up to really assess the damage and see if that was straight line winds or a tornado. Obviously, we've had warnings all across our area. Here's just a look at some of the aftermath, guys.
Christy, I do have a question for you. So this is an area where you are with Joe in PRP that saw severe weather with destructive winds on April 2nd and then the 30th, 31st. Can you ask Joe if he feels that these winds are stronger than what he saw in those 2 days? Because what's different now is there was a lot of leaves. Back in early April, there were not, and you're seeing tons of damage where you are.
Yeah, Joe, Mark is asking about the previous storms in early April. Do you remember that? Were you here? Did this feel similar? Did the winds feel differently when they came through tonight?
I mean, it was the same kind of, the winds were the same back then, but wasn't as bad as this. I mean, this was like way worse than that.
Did you hear it? Did it sound like anything in particular?
It just all happened so quick. It was like, we heard the winds and the rain, the lightning, and then we heard a big boom, and then, it kind of just happened all real fast.
Super fast.
But,
so Mark, Joe's saying definitely worse than early April.
Yeah.
By the way, tell Joe I said thank you, and we appreciate that he tunes to us and believes in us when there's things like this happening. Appreciate Christy Batista being out there. One of the things I just want to mention here, and I think, Rick, what we heard from Joe there is that maybe the winds weren't that much stronger at this time than versus April, but the damage is so much worse. And it's because of those leaves on the trees. You know, I think you forget about that sometimes, but when you put those sails on a parachute on those trees, they're just shredded. I mean, shredded.
So much more surface area for those winds to latch onto. And I mean, you see sturdy trees getting pulled down, healthier trees. I know we saw a couple that were dry rotted, but I mean, no tree's immune to winds when you're talking about 70 to 80 miles per hour.
81 in Louisville.
I mean, it doesn't matter.
I'm going to have to go back on this one to come up with the last time that Louisville had an 81. I know we've had several 70s. 80s just so elite. I
don't know if that takes a record.
I don't know. I know it's
I think the record dew point's 82. That's in my head or something like something wild like that.
But we'll have to find out. I mean, we had a measure 81 mile an hour wind at the airport in Louisville, which is high-end elite in that level of wind. So here's what we have ongoing right now. Severe thunderstorm warnings are now not in effect for most of our area. We are now under only a severe thunderstorm warning for Hart, Greene, Taylor, and Adair County. These are the only counties left under the severe thunderstorm warnings. That said, these remain the elevated type of warnings. So elevated warnings mean the threat for potentially destructive winds. I'm going to do a scope inside this storm. The worst of the winds are out of Taylor County now. The winds that are near Greensburg and Campbellsville are simply not as strong as what those other winds were. So in the scheme of, are we getting better? Are we getting worse? We're getting better. I will say this much, though. I think that the reason those storms are weakening a little bit in Campbellsville is because we have a very, very strong line that is approaching there from the west. And you can see that line going through Glasgow. Notice the shape here is more of a bow. So as that continues to move eastward, what's going to happen is the line to the north is probably going to push that southward. This will be the last gust, the last hoorah of this storm, and that is when we will then see the severe weather risk ending for our area.
Mark, I did look it up. Strongest wind gust in Louisville International is 84.
Oh no, let me guess the year. I know what it has to be. Is it? It's 1974?
You got it. That's the one.
So
84 and 74.
Obviously, this wasn't an F4 tornado barreling through Louisville, but you know, 1974, which is an epic event. Epic may not be the right word. Benchmark, legendary, tops of the tops.
Yeah, for sure.
What occurred tonight in terms of wind energy was within 3 miles an hour of what was measured now. What moved through Northfield was an F4 tornado that didn't hit the airport specifically at that strength. But we know that in 1974, that thing was cranking right after it went past the airport. And we know that it did tons of damage at the horse barns at the fairgrounds. So, you know, it is.
Yeah, I know families who grew up and, you know, her house got hit.
But that's crazy.
My friend's mother, it's like, and they were in some of the video of it, getting interviewed. I mean, it's just wild.
I'll say what we're going to do here is I'm going to stay with this for another 5 minutes. And if that wind does not come up, my rule again when I cover is if it's a threat to life and property, at that point I'm going to stay with this. What I'm seeing now in the Greensburg area is absolutely not on the level of what occurred earlier. The wind energy is way lower, way lower near Campbellsville and Greensburg. Rick, but the reason I say another 5 minutes is what's near Glasgow does at least show some subtle rotation trajectory on that could ultimately take it towards Columbia. I suspect at this point the Weather Service is unlikely to go tornado warning on this, but severe with tornado possible if they chose to go that route. But I want to get 2 more scans. If that tames a little bit, we'll return you back to programming and move on. You know, the story of everything that's occurred here is going to be that we had an incredibly volatile atmosphere today. We have seen more damage today, I believe, than our severe weather event that occurred on April 2nd, March 30th, 31st, and then we had another one 2 weeks before that. It may not be that the winds were necessarily stronger or not stronger, or more tornadoes, not tornadoes, but we know in the end of this we had leaves on the trees, and the ability of those storms to do damage was simply magnified. So I'm going to come over to Scott Reynolds here in a little bit and get an update on some of the damage that we know is in our area, because this is important. But Rick, you're looking at the same thing I am. Definitely Campbellsville and Greensburg and Nifley, not what we saw.
Nope, not even to the same level.
And what are those, just out of curiosity? We're talking about 40s now? 35s? 50s?
Yeah, barely. I see a 42 knot, so like...
Maybe some 48s.
Yeah, 48s.
Most.
No, I mean, and severe thunderstorm begins at 58.
So we're probably moving sub-severe, and you can see that's actually breaching the warning. So the warning really, what we're worried about is what's to the west of that now. Horse Cave, south to the Glasgow and Temple Hill area. Specifically, it's really near Glasgow that we're watching closely. Our Scott Reynolds has been on the desk here watching, really tracking and moving from county to county to county. Scott, you've seen us go from a scenario where we didn't have many power outages to we started to see power lines exploding on camera. Louisville, I think, peaked at around 29,000 earlier. How are we doing now?
Yeah, it's 27,943 right now in Jefferson County. And when you look on the internet, you can see the crews are out there. They'll tell you like where they're trying to get to right now. Same down in Salt River Electric, where they got up to 13,000 customers without power. A couple counties to mention, because people are always wondering when they know it got bad in their county, how many people in my area? I didn't lose it, but in Hardin County, 652 customers, and we have 321 LG&E customers in Bullitt County without power. Meade had just 88. And again, in Washington County, Indiana, more than 1,000 customers, and over 3,200 in Clark County, Indiana. So those are some of the numbers. You know, the outages again, 2,000 in Madison County for LG&E. Some big numbers out there, and in pockets where you look on the map and you'll see nothing, and then all of a sudden a big area of outages, Mark.
And Scott, we appreciate you continuing to watch that. I feel that I need to touch on something here real quickly. Can we head over to back over to weather system? I want to show you what is a potentially life-threatening situation that has evolved in London, Kentucky. So this storm, I believe, is probably within 45 to 60 minutes from being overtaken by the back. But here's London. I'm going to put on now the rotation. This is significant rotation southwest of London, Kentucky. One side 60.2 knots, the other side is 39. That puts it at around 125 mile an hour. This could be an EF2, EF3 tornado. Which way is this going? This is moving directly towards the south side of London, Kentucky. Beyond that, there is a massive debris hole in here. I'm going to put a measurement on that. The debris across we're seeing is 1.8 miles wide. Does that mean that there's a tornado that's 1.8 miles wide? It doesn't mean that, because remember, debris has mass. What I mean by that is if I'm to start spinning around, and let's say I'm holding a pen in my hand and I start spinning around, that pen is going to start to get pulled away from my body. So the debris gets centrifuged outward. The same idea that centrifugal or centrifuging outward occurs with an ice skater twirling. So the debris may be getting pushed out from the actual tornado, but the debris across is 1.8 miles wide, and this is approaching London, Kentucky on what shows a signal of maybe EF3 tornado. The Weather Service verbiage, I'm going to put it on here so you can see it, and I'm going to show you right here. I'm going to highlight. This is a particularly dangerous situation. This is a confirmed large and extremely dangerous tornado as of 11:31, located over Brunch or near London, moving east towards London. This is a life-threatening situation. I just felt that has to be talked about, because London, Kentucky is they're our neighbors. And what they're going through tonight is something that can cost lives. I hope that it occludes in weekends. There are some signals that it may be breaking away from the supercell. For sure, the body of the supercell looks like it's starting to, it doesn't have the same flying eagle that it did. This is a supercell thunderstorm that has been going on for close to 9 or 10 hours. Scott, come on in here. I mean, it's the middle of the night.
You know, I was checking out London, and we drive down that area sometimes, you know, when you're through those towns, you wonder how big they are. 7,500 people live there. So they're all just hunkering down now, wondering how close does it come to town. You said maybe the south edge?
Yeah, and it is, wow. That's the same storm that went through Bowling Green, went through Paducah, and formed south of Springfield, Missouri.
Stayed together that long.
That's, I mean, I'll show you, just because, again, I think that what you're seeing here is something that is, quite frankly, I don't think it's historic to the level of what occurred in 2011. However, you can still argue that what is occurring here is something that really doesn't occur very often. So I'm just actually going to draw it out just so you can sense. Here's where I'm going to show you the formation of this supercell is. Right there. And then I'm going to show you it moving all the way across. And then the end point here right now is near London. It hasn't ended yet. So I'm just going to put a marker on here measuring, because I think that what has happened here is something that will be remembered for many years to come. This for me, you don't get tornado warned storms going for 500 miles. So follow it. Actually, I'm just going to walk over to the wall just because I can show you here real quickly. It's just remarkable. Again, I've been doing this a long time. Storms will last a long time, and getting storms over 9 hours happens. It's just in our state, it doesn't happen all that often. And this started, so I'll show you the way that what happened and why I believe it happened the way it did. So watch right here near Springfield. You're going to see 3 supercells right here form. This one hooks in on the outflow boundary from the storms that fired earlier in the day. And you can see it following 500 miles all the way into London. Watch it one more time. You can also see that there's storms that are moving in a completely different direction that just go past it. Watch what comes out of Arkansas, right here. Going in the wrong direction and moving northeast. That's what I was telling you when I spoke yesterday. And I said this is a volatile, dangerous spatial environment. If this had gone across our area, it obviously could have been way worse on that regard. It didn't. It moved off the southern part of our area, but when we were talking last night, there was no way to know exactly where that track was going to be. And so I felt a definitive and strong need to up the verbiage, because I can tell you that the spatial environment was violent in our area. That is factual, and that you don't get supercells, Rick, that go 500 miles all that often. And we have a new tornado warning now for London. So, and this is a long words I'm looking for, it's a big warning. I'll come over to you because you're looking at it closely.
Yeah, I mean, you can see that clearly the couplet. This is...
And there's 2 areas
that's
of rotation
I-75.
there.
This is going to cross 75.
Which
there's a little bit less diffuse one, and then there's a secondary one.
That's insane.
75, 25, and there's downtown London.
So does it still have that debris signature on it?
Let me see which direction.
It's going due east.
It's
so
going
it may be coming down in intensity a little bit. Okay.
It still has
It's a little smaller, maybe, and maybe it'll go south of London. But I mean, this is a big deal, what's occurring here. So I know if you're in our area, you're curious about what's going on. For us, I promised you a couple more minutes and analysis on what's occurring here. Rick, if you could, I moved you over to the Jackson, Kentucky site because I was wanting to take a closer look. But you may want to get back to Louisville as we look. I'm going to just peer in on what's approaching Columbia now, and if I feel that our threat of destructive winds is much lower, then I will probably back away from this now. We look towards Edmonton. Still looking at some degree of wind there. I don't see an overly amount of rotation. It's very minor that is approaching the western part of Adair County. That said, we're viewing this directly from the south. Can you check that from Hopkinsville, Richard? I'm sorry. I almost called you Richard.
That's when I'm in trouble.
Is that what your parents called you?
Yeah, when I'm in Richard. No.
Does your wife call you ever Richard?
No.
Because you're never in trouble with her?
Oh, that's not true. I'm in perpetual trouble with her. So there's really no difference. But yeah.
Yeah, check in from the west. I just want to make sure if we return to programming that we're confident on what we're seeing here. But as I'm looking at this from the Louisville site, I'm also going to do the same thing Rick's doing. I'm going to look at it from Hopkinsville just because the view into the storm is a better view for us to get, maybe a Fort Campbell on there, by the way. It would be a better view of us to get a view on that rotation. So we'll take a look at it. And if, again, we feel that the potential for wind on that is lower, Rick, I'm going to come over to you. We can do it live.
Okay, I'm just caching back some of the data.
So there's Bowling Green and looking towards London. That is the live view right now. Looking eastward towards the Greensburg area, towards Columbia. In there is a very high up in the air, minor rotation north of Edmonton, but it doesn't look like maybe the same level of wind, and I assume we're looking way up in the atmosphere.
Yeah, it's about 8,500 feet up.
So I think that we've reached a point that we're going to just watch these storms off air for a little bit. So severe thunderstorm warning remains in effect here for Adair County. Severe thunderstorm remains in effect for Greene and Hart County. The intensity of the wind is not as strong as what it was earlier. For the Greensburg area, we're probably talking about maybe some 50-mile-an-hour winds. I think the greatest chance of seeing some 60s would be Adair County. If we feel that the threat of either a tornado or the winds going to 70 come back up, we'll come back into programming. As it stands right now, we've seen you guys for a little while. I hope that through a day that has been an interesting one with many turns on it, with multiple waves, that we're able to help. Sun up tomorrow will tell us a lot about what has occurred in our area. I would ask you guys, we're your neighbors. Find your neighbor tomorrow if he has some tree damage and think of how you can help. Yeah. We're a tight-knit community. One of the things that we do incredibly well is when we have damage, we come together. It shows the best of who we are. It's 11:49 right now. If there are additional high-end warnings or if this shows a threat of tornadoes, we'll come back in. Keep it right here on WDRB for continuing weather updates.
Join our regularly scheduled program already in progress.
A real handful that day.
You're making me worry. What's going on?
What's going on is we're about to go to a prom. And there's a great deal of pressure on young couples like us to engage in what Mr. Bob Eubanks called making whoopee.
What pressure? All I said was you look handsome. Can you please open the door?
It's not just that. Leonard and Penny also made comments about it. And I'm not blind. Even I looked twice when I saw my posterior in these tuxedo